Hi everyone, I'm Rosemary and welcome to my 12 Styles of Christmas compilation video. This is a long form video, but you can find an index in the description box along with links to all of the original short form videos. I hope you enjoy. First up is the nostalgic whimsy and old-fashioned charm of vintage Christmas. Oh my goodness, I was so excited to see these vintage style cups at the Dollar Tree this year. My grandmother had tons of these decorating her house at Christmas, and of course they were always sprouting some type of bottle brush tree or other popular floral and pick of the day. So I was happy to see that along with the bottle brush trees that they've had for several years now, they also had a great selection of vintage style picks as well. Then, in a recent visit to Goodwill, I also found these little cutie vintage style snowman cups. And then back at the Dollar Tree, they had these glass cups in this great shape that with a little bit of gloss white spray paint can easily be transformed into a great vintage look. So after I painted the mug with the gloss white spray paint, I went back with some craft paint in the color Tuscan Red, and using a makeup sponge, I painted around the rim of the mug and then also painted the handle. I let that first coat dry and then I went back and painted a second coat on top. Now for the floral inserts, I'm going to start first with my Santa head mug and these wonderful bottle brush trees. To create the ornaments for my bottle brush trees, I'm going to take some of these shimmery pipe cleaners and roll half of it around one way and then half of it around the other way, and then just kind of squish it into a ball shape. Now that will make the larger ornament, and I'll just go ahead and hot glue that in place. But now to make the smaller ornaments, because they were always like a large and then a small in these trees, I'm going to just take the pipe cleaners and cut them in half and just do the same process, rolling it one way, then rolling it the other way, and then squishing it into a smaller ball, and then again just hot gluing them into place. And then once I attached all the ornaments, I just took another pipe cleaner and twisted it around the base and then used that to secure the tree to the foam inside the cup. And then I just repeated that process for two of the smaller trees. Next, I took a piece of that snowy type of a blanket, that you get for winter scenes and that type of thing. I had some of that on hand, so I just kind of pulled it apart and just made it kind of nice and fluffy and then just stuffed it in there all the way along the base. For my snowman head mug, I'm going to take a couple of these Dollar Tree picks. Now these needed to have a little bit, pretty much everything on them was pretty good, except they did need a little bit of a vintage style makeover, so I popped off those apples that came with them and added these shimmery type Christmas balls that I also got from the Dollar Tree. And then that just gave them enough of a vintage makeover. And then I just used the two of those placed together, pulled out some of those holly leaves, made sure that they got nice and front and center, and then just placed it right into the mug. Now I did have to go back because I forgot to put the moss on, but that was pretty much it. Just makes a great little vintage mug just like that. For the Goodwill Snowman mug, I used some of these mini ornaments and some of these greens from Walmart. And I just started by taking the greens and just placing them all around in the foam. Then again, I forgot my moss, so I had to go back and add some floral moss there to the top. But then once all my greens were placed, I just took the ornaments and I clipped off the top. I wasn't going to use the hanger to hang them. I just decided to hot glue them to some of the stems and then just place them around in my arrangement. For the next arrangement, I'm going to use my painted cup and these vintage style picks. And I'm just going to go ahead and place that one with the poinsettia flowers to the back, and then add the little pick with the Santa Claus to the front. And then I'll just fluff and arrange everything together. And then here are the 4 finished projects. These are for you, Grandma. Next, I'm going to give a vintage makeover to this little snowman ornament from the Dollar Tree. To do that, I'm going to take a red and a white pipe cleaner and I'm going to twist them together. And I'm going to do that for 2 sets of pipe cleaners. And then I'm going to fold it in half and cut it there in the middle. To make a top hat, I took some black felt and I just cut a circle and a rectangle. And then I just took the rectangle and wrapped it around and made a little cylinder out of that. And then I just added some hot glue to the bottom of that cylinder and then just added it to my little circle cutout. And then I cut out another little circle to finish off the top. Next, I removed the little twig arms, and they just pop right out, and I replaced them with the twisted pipe cleaners, and I just used a little hot glue to attach them as well. And then I used the other two pipe cleaners for his legs. And then I just cut them to size. And then you can have some fun just shaping his arms and legs into all types of different poses. Next, I just used some hot glue to attach the hat, making sure to put the ornament hanger to the back of the hat, and then I just glued the ornament hanger along the back. And then to give it a more authentic vintage look, I just took a black paint marker and painted over the little ruby buttons. And then here is the finished project, a fun little vintage snowman ornament for your tree. For the next DIY, I'm going to use this beautiful vintage plate that I found on my Goodwill shopping trip. Then all I'm going to do is take some of these Dollar Tree window clings. They have some beautiful ones this year, and so all I want to do though is to give them a little bit more of a finish and painted look. I am going to trim out the figures pretty close to the image. It does have like little edges there, so I'm going around with some scissors and I'm going to cut out right up to where the image begins. And then once I've trimmed down all of my images, I'm just going to arrange them right directly to the plate. Now I could Mod Podge these down, but because I like this plate so much, and I'm not going to be, this is just of course a decorative sign, it's just going to be a decorative plate, I will be able to then remove the stickers if I want to use this plate at other times of the year. Now, a complete Dollar Tree option of this same project would be to use one of these charger plates, and then I just painted it with some white spray paint, and then I'm again going to cut out the images, or not cut them out, but trim them so that I get a really nice crisp edge on those, and then I'll just apply those to the charger plate. Now in this case, I do want to add a little bit of red craft paint to the edges and the little dots above, and so I'm going to mix both a little darker color red and a brighter color of red, because that darker red was a little too dark, especially for where the I'm going to kind of match that red of the truck. So I did want to brighten it up a little bit, and I'm going to just use the makeup sponge again like I did for the cup earlier and just go along the edges of the plate. For the raised dots, I'm going to take the end of a paintbrush and just dip the end of the paintbrush into the paint and just dot that right on top of those little raised dots along the edge. And then here are the two projects side by side, a quick and easy way to bring a little vintage flair to your home. Another quick and easy vintage sign can be made using this Dollar Tree Merry Christmas. Now it comes in a glitter. I'm going to actually paint it with this colonial red spray paint, but the glitter would actually work out pretty well too, I think. But before I paint it, I am going to cover the holes at the top. I just cut out little squares of cardboard, glued it to the back, and then I'm just filling in the hole with some caulk. For the backing of the sign, I cut out a piece of 15 by 20 inch poster board and also a 15 by 20 inch piece of the foam board, both from Dollar Tree. Then using a glue stick, I'm going to glue the two pieces together, making sure to get all of the corners and edges and then in between. Next, I took a couple of dowels that I purchased from Walmart, and I'm going to just give those a coat of black paint. Once the paint was dry on my Merry Christmas, I just took that and placed it on my poster board and glued it down with some E6000 glue. Then I cut my black dowels to size and just glue them along the edges. And then here is the finished project, a quick and easy vintage sign in that classic black, white, and red. For my next DIY, I'll be using this bell from the Dollar Tree, as well as this rather ornately embossed bowl from the Dollar Tree, and then also a little canister, glass canister with lid that I found at Goodwill. So first I just wanted to remove that decoration off of the top of the bell, and it just twists right off. And then I also wanted to just clip off that top loop there as well. And I'm going to then take some E6000 glue and glue the bell to the top of the canister. And then I'm going to take some of that Colonial Red spray paint and spray paint the lid, the bell, and the bowl with the paint. And then here's what they look like after they've been painted. And you can see how nice that Colonial Red comes up to give a great vintage look. And then I did do a little switcheroo here. I originally started with this shorter canister, this one that I purchased from Goodwill, but I wasn't really liking the look of that. And I remembered that I did have this taller canister from another project I was working on. This one actually is from Hobby Lobby. And so I decided to use that one, and I'm going to just eventually glue that to the top. But right now I'm going to keep it off just so that I can continue to show you this project. And then I also took a Dollar Tree puck light and just attached it there to the bottom of the lid so this project can also light up. To create my scene, I'm going to start with some rocks here at the bottom. And the reason I do that is so that it can support the weight of the figures and things I'm going to put in. Otherwise, they'll just fall right through that fake snow. Now, Dollar Tree does sell these little houses and little snowmen and other figures, and of course, these great bottle brush trees. But I had purchased these items at end of season last year at Walmart, and I thought they were just great for this project. And then I just covered the rocks with the fake snow, making sure to get the snow all the way around and cover the rocks completely. And then I just went ahead and added my figures and the bottle brush trees. To add a little extra festive touch, I did go ahead and add some greens and a little bow to the top of my lantern, and then of course lit up. It looks so pretty at night, and you can see it really does give off quite a lot of light, and it's just a beautiful addition to add some old-fashioned vintage charm. Style number 2 is the yummy cuteness of Gingerbread Christmas. For the first DIY, I'm going to make some embellishments from applesauce and cinnamon ornament dough. Now, if you're not familiar with this, you simply mix applesauce and cinnamon to create a dough that can be then shaped into ornaments, trinkets, and embellishments. Now, I know there are different recipes. There are some even using glue and flour, but the mixture I've always found to work just perfectly is the 2.5 ounce container of cinnamon, which is the size that you get at Dollar Tree or Walmart for the generic brand, and 1 container of the single serve applesauce. For me, I just find that this recipe consistently makes the best dough. It's not too sticky, not too stiff, and it's a tried and true method I've been using for years and years. Now, once I've gotten the dough to a nice consistency, I just roll it out and use cookie cutters to make the shapes. From here, you can air dry or bake at a low 200 degrees for 2 hours. While my ornaments are baking, I'm going to take a Walmart cookie sheet. Now, this is the Mainstays brand. It only costs $1.48. I preferred this because of the color to the Dollar Tree brand. And then I'm going to also use some Dollar Tree stickers as well as some Walmart stickers to put on my saying. And my quote is going to say, "Let's bake and watch Christmas movies." So I'm going to use this ruler method to just go ahead and apply the stickers. This allows you to just kind of lay them out and keep them nice and even. And I'll do that for the first letters. You can see them in there just barely, but you get the idea. I'm going to then add the next line, which is bake. And then from there, I'm going to use those smaller stickers to create the next part, which is and watch. And then the last line will be Christmas movies. And I'm just using a hodgepodge there because that's what I had available from some other projects that I worked on previously. Next, I'm going to take a white paint marker and I'm going to just start dotting all over the letters. Now, you'll see in a second here that I am paying special attention to the edges of the letters. So I want to make sure that I'm getting a lot of dots all around the edges because I want, once I remove the stickers, for that outline to be nice and crisp. If it's too dotted around there, then I won't be able to see the makeout of the letters. So as I go around the stickers, I'm making sure that I'm getting right up there, right real close to where the edge of the sticker is, so that I can get a really defined letter. So when I remove those stickers, it will be nice and defined around that area. And then I'll just go back with my paint marker and I'll just start dabbing all over the place to create this kind of flower-like effect, as if someone dumped a bunch of flour and then wrote the letters in there. Now I'm going to go and add my little embellishments that have come out of the oven. And since we want to add some color to those, I'm going to use some puffy paint to decorate them, much the way you would if you were decorating cookies with icing. So I just went ahead and did my little stockings and my little snowflakes and all of the different embellishments with the paint. And now I'm going to go ahead while those are drying and remove the stickers. Now you'll see as I do that there are some spots that really do need to go over with the marker, because I did not get them as closely as I had wanted to. So I can just go back then afterwards and just kind of define those letters a little bit more with the paint marker. Next, I thought that the edges of the pan needed a little brightening, so I took some red gloss enamel paint and just went all around the edges. I did have to use 3 coats in order to get a nice finish. And now I'm going to go back with some more of that puffy paint and just do little dots all the way around to add some design to the pan. Okay, and so here is the finished pan once all the little dots have been applied. Now, I just wanted to point out that I think that the proportions, I really love the way it came out. I think it looks great, but I think the proportions are off a little bit. I think that either the cookie should have been bigger or you should have added more cookies, maybe bringing them in further into where the lettering is, and then adding some more to it. But I think it came out pretty good all the same. So for the next DIY, my plan was to use the little ornaments that I made again from the applesauce and cinnamon dough. And I did use a little straw there to create the hole at the top. And I was going to take some of these Walmart pom-poms. They were 99 cents a bag. And I was going to string them along on the baker's twine to create a cute little garland and decorate the little ginger people with the icing paint as well. But then I found this 6 feet of bead garland from Walmart for just $3.48. And then when I went to Hobby Lobby, I found these ornaments for 50% off. So they were anywhere from $1.50 to $2, making these all pretty budget friendly. Now, when I DIY, cost is always one of the biggest factors. But of course, there is also the joy of crafting and the pride of craftsmanship that also come into play. But if I have the opportunity to creatively put things together and still be cost effective, I'll often go for that option. So that's what I'm going to do in this case. And since I had already used the cinnamon dough ornaments in the previous DIY, I thought it would be better to go ahead and show you how I put together these prefabbed items to create a fun new piece. And so I just spaced them out and then used the ornament hanger to attach them to the bead rope. On the ginger people, I taped the ornament hanger down to the back of the ornament. And then on the little houses and the candy canes, I left the loop up so that I could attach it to the hooks. And then here is another look at the finished project, a cute little gingerbread banner / garland to brighten any spot in your home. And I'm loving banners so much, I think this little red truck banner from previous DIY would make the perfect giveaway for this video. Details coming up. For this next DIY, I'll be using old candle jars from my Aldi candles that I just cleaned out. So they just kind of, after they're all burnt out, I guess, scrape out all the wax. Then I use some Goo Gone and it comes out pretty easy. And then I'm also going to be using these vases and candlesticks that I picked up at Goodwill for $1 each. And then I'm going to take the candle lids as well as the candlesticks and paint them all with this apple red spray paint. Next, I'm going to take some mini cupcake liners as well as some of these Dollar Tree ping pong balls. And I just want to use some hot glue to glue the ping pong balls to the cupcake liner. I'm going to be using these to make some faux mini cupcakes. And then I'm also going to use these little beads and tube confetti and erasers to create little toppers. And then this caulk will be the icing. But before I do the icing, I do want to prepare the toppers a little bit. So I just wanted to give my erasers a little painted finish. And so I just painted the surfaces and then went back with some puffy paint to do the decorations. And then to do the icing, I'll again just use this caulk. I'm going to just apply it kind of in this swirling circular fashion. I'll go and do like a first row down at the bottom, and then I'll start a second row on top of that, and just keep going up and up until the entire cupcake is iced. Next, I'm going to take some of that Dollar Tree tube confetti and just sprinkle it over the wet caulk to create some sprinkles for the cupcake. And then I'm going to take the eraser topper that I painted and just again place that into the wet caulk and then leave that all to dry for a couple of hours. And then once the caulk was dry on the cupcakes, I did go back with some of that gloss enamel paint and just painted the paper to give it a better texture and a more durable finish. Next, I wanted to embellish the jar lid a little bit, so of course I went to my new old favorite, puffy paint. I haven't used this stuff in years, and everything I was turning to in this video, it was like, puffy paint, use puffy paint, it's perfect. So anyway, I just went along the edge of the jar lid there, and then also in that circle there on the top, just doing a little puffy paint ring all the way around. And then once all my dots are dry, I'll take my faux cupcakes and glue them to the center to create little toppers. And then as my lids were drying, I took some E6000 glue and just glued my glass jars to the painted candlesticks. And then here's a look at how they all came together. So here's all three of them with the different faux cupcake toppers. And you can see how they make great little canisters. You can give them as gifts or have them for display. I'm going to be using them for my cocoa bar this year, which I'll be redoing with all gingerbread. And so I have some marshmallows and peppermints. And also in the middle are my quick and easy homemade hot chocolate bomb hacks, which I will leave a link to here and in the description box in case you want to check it out. Well, I think it's time to announce another winner. Next up is this wall art from the Reason for the Season episode. And the winner is Evelyn Conrad. Congratulations, Evelyn. And I will be announcing the next winner in a little bit. Next, I wanted to create a little holder for my hot cocoa packets. So I thought what I would do was take one of these Dollar Tree crates and just attach it to one of these Dollar Tree little gingerbread cutouts. And then this way they would kind of hide the packets because I hate when they kind of hang out all over the place. And so I'm going to just first start by painting all of the house and the crate with some brown craft paint to create gingerbread, and then white craft paint there on the snow and all along the edges and also on the windows and the door. And then once all that base paint was painted, it was time to decorate. And then you know what I did? I went and got me some puffy paint. And I started decorating and creating all little decorations with the puffy paint. First I did some stripes down here along the edge. Then I did some peppermints and gumdrops and all types of yummy treats. And then once I had finished all the decorating, I just took the little wood crate and I placed some wood glue to the front, and then I just attached the two pieces together. And then here's another look at my gingerbread house hot cocoa holder, which is going to make a perfect addition to my new gingerbread hot cocoa bar, which of course I will show you in an upcoming video. Now I am just loving using window clings along with chargers or plates to create decor pieces. It is so quick and easy and it has such an amazing effect. So when I saw these cupcake window clings at the Dollar Tree, I knew I just had to do one for my cocoa bar. And so I wasn't certain though that red on the charger is a little dark, so I went ahead and just sprayed it with some of that apple red spray paint, and then I simply just started to apply the clings. Now I did leave the outline, I did cut that off in previous videos, but it was, you know, it was cute on this because it is a little bit more cartoonish, and I thought it gave it you know, just a little outline and some more definition. So I left those on. Now the one thing is that I did have to cut out, it wasn't enough of the candies to go around, so I took the candy cane off of this cupcake here at the bottom and just trimmed it around and then placed that as my missing candy there in that space. And then you guessed it, time to accent with some puffy paint. And so I just went around the edge of the charger, just making some dots on top of the dots that were already there. And then I also did an interior circle as well. And then here's a final look at how it all came together. Another quick and easy window cling plate project. Yet another variation to see how cute you can do these different projects. And now this last DIY is another quick and easy one. It uses one of these little tinsel garland trees from the Dollar Tree. And once I removed everything from the tree, it's just left with the skeleton, and I painted it with some of that apple red spray paint. And then once that paint was dry, I took some of this striped ribbon from Walmart. It's only $3.98 for that great big roll. And I just cut it in about 3-inch pieces with the corners kind of cut like that on an angle. And then I'm going to just take some hot glue and just begin applying the ribbon to the skeleton of my former tinsel tree. And I'm going to just keep going all the way around, just applying the ribbons. And then when I get down to that next level, I'm going to kind of place those ribbons in between the ribbons of the previous layer. And again, just glue them all the way around. And that's it. A cute little candy stripe ribbon tree to further accent my cocoa bar. Style number 3 is all about the homestyle comfort of rustic farmhouse Christmas. For my first DIY, I'm going to use Holly's pick of the stovetop covers. I'm also going to be using this old sweater. Now the sleeves have already been used for pumpkin sweaters, but I'm going to go ahead and just use the front and back of the sweater for this project. Then I'm going to take a little holly tip and use some masking tape to create a surface for me to glue onto the back of the stovetop cover. And so I'll just start with the top there. I am making sure that that pattern of the sweater is lined up, kind of up and down. And I'll just kind of attach the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to continue to glue the other pieces of the sweater around, but I'm going to be pleating it as I go. So I'm just creating little pleats and then hot gluing it down into place. And then I'll do that all the way around, and this will ensure that I get a nice, smooth, gap-free front. Next, I took another piece of that sweater material and this smaller burner cover, and this time I was able to get the material all the way around. But in order to fill that gap with the larger burner cover, I just went back with a small cutout of the material and glued it in place. Since I wanted to make this a standing snowman, I took a large painter stick and added some multi-purpose quick and thick glue as well as some hot glue, and then just attached the paint stick to the back of my sweater covered burner covers. And then I put some books on top to weight it down. To decorate my snowman, I took some stickers, buttons, and these little mirror rounds from the Dollar Tree and painted those black. Then I just wanted to secure my snowman to the stick a little better, so I went back with my hot glue gun and just filled in any gaps. Whoops, I forgot his nose, so I just took a craft stick and cut out a kind of a carrot shape, or a kind of a wonky carrot shape, and then I just went ahead and painted that orange. To decorate my snowman, I used those little mirror rounds that I had painted black for his eyes, and then the buttons I used for the buttons, and then for his mouth I used the stickers that I had painted black, and then I did use a little extra glue to make sure they stayed on. Now for the snowman's scarf and hat, I wanted to use this plaid skirt that I actually purchased at a yard sale last year. I loved it because it had this wonderful tassel fringe. So I wanted to cut a piece of that fringy bottom, and all I did with this to make the scarf was to add some tacky glue there and just fold it over just to kind of get a good seam there and not have any frayed ends. To make the hat, I took a 12-inch by 9-inch piece of the material, and then I wanted to create like a little cuff on the front, so I just folded it and then flipped it over, and then along the back side I added some hot glue and just glued down that frayed end. Then I flipped it back to the front and just glued down the cuff part so that that would stay in place. And then I attached it directly to my snowman. I just took the hat, a piece of material, wrapped it around, hot glued one side, then hot glued the other side, and then flipped it back over, gave it a little bit more glue underneath so that it would hold in place. And then once that was set, I kind of bunched up that top part and took a pipe cleaner and just wrapped the top with that. And then I just took my scarf and wrapped it around. And don't mind my phone there in the frame. I was actually waiting for Holly to call. We had been missing each other for days, and so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss the call, and I forgot to take it out of the frame. But the next step was that I actually took a brick. I have lots of bricks, but if you don't, no worries. You can pick up bricks at Lowe's or Home Depot for about 37 cents, and they make great stands because they're nice and heavy, and those paint sticks fit right in the holes. And then here is the finished project, a cute little standing snowman made with Dollar Tree stovetop covers and some material scraps. For the next DIY, I'm switching over to one of my picks, which was some Dollar Tree twine. Now I put the twine into this Parmesan cheese container, and I had this idea to put it through this lid. You'll see that did not work out too well. But the next step was that I added some glue, just regular school glue, to the twine, and I just kind of mashed it all around to make sure that the twine was nice and wet with the glue. Next, I took a star-shaped balloon that I purchased from the Dollar Tree and began wrapping it with the glue-soaked twine. Now, there was no rhyme or reason to this at first. I was just trying to get the twine onto the balloon. So I was just wrapping it kind of all different ways, haphazardly, just wrapping it around. I'm not going to lie, it was a hot mess. But here it is after 2 of the little bundles of twine were applied. And I noticed that some of the details, like the points, were not kind of wrapped. So I did go back on my third little spool of twine that comes in the 3-pack and make sure that all of the corners and all the points were all wrapped with the twine. So, I just suggest to do that. The other thing I would suggest is definitely buy a Christmas color, because as you'll see, I was originally going to buy an orange one because they had them readily available. And I said, no, it'll look better on the video. Well, good thing I did, because I did have some trouble. Now, I don't know if it was because I let it stay too long. I actually took a couple days before I removed the balloon, but it did leave a lot of the red balloon, which I will show you how I had to go back and kind of file it off, actually. But it looked not that bad because it was a nice Christmas red, and so if you do get a lot of the balloon left on the twine, it kind of shimmers red, so it's okay. So definitely, if you're going to do this project, pick a Christmas color if you're doing this for Christmas. Now here it is after I did attach all 3 of the twine spools that come in the package, and it is, this is actually a couple of days because I kind of forgot, I was doing other things and I didn't get back to it. It might be why I had the problem with the removal of the balloon, but it was probably good in about 6 or 7 hours, was probably ready to have the balloon removed. But this is probably 2 days later, so it's about 48 hours later. And so it comes off pretty easy in terms of it, just kind of removing itself from, the balloon removes itself from the twine. And then I was able to kind of go in there on the end and just pull out all of the rest of the balloon. But you'll see there where it left a lot of the red attached. It was removing the foil. And again, I don't know if that was because I let it sit too long, but I don't think you'd have this problem if you didn't have a foil balloon. But with a foil balloon, this seems to be a challenge. But it was fine. I just went back with this little nail file and just kind of poked everything out, and then actually just kind of filed it down a little bit, and then that would remove the red. And then I got to a certain point and I just said, you know what, it looks okay with little pieces of red here and there, of course, because this is Christmas. And then here is the finished project. I just added a little greenery and a plaid bow, and you can see where there are little pieces of the red left over, but I think it just adds to the effect. For the next DIY, I'm going to use these party hats, and I'm going to just take them apart, and then I'll remove that little elastic band, and then I'm going to flatten them out, and you'll see that on the right hand side there's kind of a little tab where it would tuck in. I'm going to cut that off, and then I'm going to take a ruler, and on that right hand corner I'm going to measure in 1 inch and mark it there. And then I'm going to flip the party hat back around to the outside so that the inside is now outside, and then I'll line that edge up with the line that I marked, and then go ahead and put it back together using some hot glue. Then I'm going to repeat the process for 5 more of the hats, but each time I'm going to measure in 1 more inch. So again, I'm going to flatten it out, cut off that little tab, and this time I'll measure in 2 inches. And then again, just flip it around and hot glue it into place where I measured that mark. Now, because it does get a little confusing once you make all these little new hats, I needed to go back and start marking them at the 1, the 2, to tell me which one it was. It'll be important later on. And then again, I'm going to just now go to a 3 and just do the same thing. Again, 4, 5, and 6 will be the other ones. And then they do get smaller and smaller. This last one is a little hard to get wrapped around, but once you get it there, just go ahead and glue it in place. Next, I just took some paper towel and toilet paper rolls. Now, if you're using paper towel, you'll need about 5 paper towels and about 10 of the toilet paper rolls. And what I'm going to do is just do a dry brush of an ivory color first. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut open the paper towel roll and just do a dry brush of ivory on all of my paper towel rolls, and then go back and do a dry brush of the ivory on all of my little hats. Then once that's done, I'm going to go back with some brown paint and do a dry brush of the brown paint on top of the ivory paint. Of course, after the ivory paint has had a chance to dry. And then this is what they should look like when you're done. Next, what I want to do with the little paper towel rolls is fold them back in half, and then I'm going to mark off 1 inch sections, and then I'm going to cut those 1 inch sections. Then each of those 1 inch sections I'm going to cut into a leaf shape. So once I cut this section, since they was folded in half, I'm going to get 2 little leaves, and then I'll do that for all of my paper towel rolls. Next, I'm going to take my largest hat, or my number 1 hat, and I'm going to attach the leaves to the bottom. I'm going to just use some hot glue to do that. I'm pretty much going in the middle of the leaf, is kind of lined up with the edge of the hat, and I'm kind of, folding or curling those leaves around a little bit. And I'll just go along the whole bottom of the hat, hot gluing these leaves on. And then once I've completed that first row, I'm going to go back and do a second row, and I'm going to put those leaves in between the first row of leaves. So you can see there where I'm attaching it, it's kind of right in between. I'll put the glue there right in between the bottom level of leaves, and then that's where I attach the second row. Will go right between the leaves on the first row. And then you can see there is a little overlapping, which is fine. Either overlapping, or you can cut them down, whichever you prefer. And then once I've gotten 2 rows onto hat number 1, I'm going to move on to hat number 2 and also give that hat 2 rows of the leaves in the exact same way. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do the same thing for hats 3, 4, 5, and when I get to 6, that hat I will do the leaves all the way up to the top. Now, once you do get to hat 6, you are going to probably need to cut down the leaves a little bit because it does taper in really small, and so trimming those leaves a little bit will probably be required. And then all you need to do is stack them, starting with number 1 on the base, and then come right up from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 will go on top. And then here is the finished project. You can leave as is for a great woody look, but I went ahead and added a little greenery and berries to the top. For the next DIY, I'm going to be using 3 of these half-gallon cartons, and 2 of those I'm going to be cutting down. Now, I did indicate there at 4 inches. I'm actually going to cut those a little smaller, but we'll look at that in a second. First, let's take a look at this first milk carton, I'm going to remove the little spout. I'm going to hold that aside because I am going to be using that. And then I'm going to cut down on all four sides there were on the edges, and I'm just cutting down to that top seam. Then I'm going to fold the edges in and just hot glue those in place, creating a nice little rectangular shape for my milk carton. Now, once I cut this to 4 inches, I realized it was way too tall and 3 inches was the better measurement. So I went back and did cut those down to 3 inches. And now, since I do want to glue to the sides of the cartons, I did want to sand down the sides just to remove that waxy coating. Next, I took all 3 cartons as well as this can of tomato sauce and painted them all with some black spray paint. While the paint was drying, I took some craft sticks and I cut them into 3.5-inch pieces. Then I took my painted cartons and began gluing the cut sticks to the side using some hot glue. Before adding my wood panels to my larger rectangle, I realized that I needed to add these jumbo sticks to the bottom. These are jumbo craft sticks. I got these at Walmart. And so I just went ahead and with a combination of E6000 and hot glue, I just attached these to the bottom of my large carton. And then I also added some of the smaller craft sticks to the bottom side for extra support. And then I painted all these new additions with some black paint. While that paint was drying, I went ahead and took my can that I had spray painted earlier, and now I'm going to just add some wood paneling to that with these popsicle sticks that I purchased from Dollar Tree. And so I'm going to just hot glue these sticks all the way around the outside of my can. And then when I got to the bottom, there was a one that didn't fit, but that's okay because it's going to go on the bottom when I glue it down. Now, one of the things that I didn't realize when I was first doing this was that I didn't want to put wood all the way around. I thought I was going to do that at first, which is why I sanded everything down. But then I realized that I wanted to keep some with black paint. And so I had to go back and just paint those with some chalk paint because they were all scratched up from where I thought I was going to be gluing wood. But what I'm doing here now is back to the large rectangle. And I'm again using those 3.5-inch pieces to do the sides. And now I'm going back with some 5-inch pieces and gluing those to the top for the roof. And then to add a little trim, I took these wood dowels from the Dollar Tree and just cut them down to size, sanded off the edges a little bit, and then glued them into place. And I did that all the way around the top and then along the 2 sides. Then in order to give the wood a little stain, I just diluted this caramel colored craft paint and just brushed that over all of my wood pieces. Next, I went back to my little boxcars because I needed to do a little platform on the bottom. So I took a couple of Jenga blocks and hot glued them to the bottom of each of my boxcars. Then I came up to my cabin and glued 2 Jenga blocks under that, and then another 2 Jenga blocks went underneath of the engine. For the train wheels, I'm going to use these tires from this little car as well as this motorcycle. Now I got both of these at the Dollar Tree. I did need 3 of the cars and just 1 of the motorcycles. And I popped the tires off the little car, and I'm going to attach those with some hot glue and some E6000. Now I'm going to attach them to the sides of the carton, and if you notice, it is the bottom of the tire is above where that little platform is, those little Jenga blocks down below, because the train is actually going to sit on the little Jenga blocks, and the wheels are more for decoration because they really can't hold the weight with the depending on what you put in it. So anyway, I thought that's why I would do the little platforms, and then I wouldn't have to worry about all the tires being different sizes and that type of thing. So I could just put these bigger tires here up higher and it wouldn't make it all lopsided. And if you don't glue them right, they're going to sit lopsided. So this way, the Jenga blocks are going to be a certain height, and you can just leave those as a platform and just glue the tires more in a decorative way to the sides of your cartons. Now, I did have a little bit of a design flaw here. When I went to attach the front tires, there's nothing to glue them to. So Jenga blocks to the rescue again. I'm going to take those and paint those black. Now, while I'm going to do that, I figured let me get this smokestack also painted black. And so I just took some of those craft stick ends and then that little from the milk carton spout, which I glued on top. And then I just took them all and painted them all black. And then here are the Jenga blocks after I have painted them black and attached them to the side of my little engine compartment there. And now you see I have something to glue my wheels onto. And then here are cartons and popsicle sticks looking more and more like a train. I did wanted to show you what it looks like at this stage with the little engine part put on the front, because now here it is like all wood, and I kind of like it with the wood, and just wanted to show you what the options are before I go ahead and add our feature piece, because you must have been saying, where's the feature piece? I see no foil pans. Where did they go? So this is the time that I'm going to actually use the feature piece, and I'm going to take this foil pan from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to distress these pans with both some gray paint at first, and then also add some black paint into that, and then also some burnt umber is going to go around the edges of the cut pieces. And I'm just using a piece of a plastic shopping bag as the applicator. So first I did the gray coat, and now I'm doing the black, and I'm just kind of pouncing it on. I'm just using a very little bit of black, not much, but it just gives a great distressed, aged look to the metal. And then what I want to do is cut out the individual pieces. Now this piece is going to be wrapped around the engine barrel there. And before I put it onto the wood, I do want to just give it a little bit of a burnt umber around the edges. I also cut out some 2 by 3 inch pieces of the metal, and again doing some of that burnt umber there around the edges, and these are going to be for the windows on my cabin. To attach the metal, I use some hot glue on the edge, and then I put some E6000 in the middle, wrapped the metal around, and then I'm going to use some hot glue there again at the edge. Then I'll attach the entire barrel to the platform using some E6000 glue. Now make sure, of course, that you put it in the right direction, because you want that little spiral part or little circular part to be at the front. And then here it is with the little windows all attached in the front, the back, and on both sides. And then the last step for this engine is to put the smokestack on. And so I'm just going to go ahead and glue that right in place, again with some hot glue and E6000. I also cut out some metal pieces for the sides of the box cars, and then to link all the trains together, I'll be using these chains that I have left over from a planter project this summer that just came from the hanging Dollar Tree planters. And oh my goodness, how cute this little train is with its little cargo cars that can hold little gifts or candies or just some Christmas greens like I show here. It would also make a great family project that you can do with the kids or grandkids. Next up is style number 4, Modern Farmhouse. For my first DIY, I'll be using this black piece of poster board. Now I did cut this poster board down to 20 inches by 20 inches. Now this next step is optional, but since I had it on hand, I decided to go ahead and give this poster board a quick coat of some chalkboard spray paint. Now here it is after I did paint it, and you can see it really does make any difference. But I just wanted to show you that I did do that. And then I took a piece of Dollar Tree foam board that I also cut to 20 inches by 20 inches. And then I just took a large glue stick and put that on top of the foam board, making sure that I got all along the edges in particular, and then of course in the middle as well. And then I placed my 20 by 20 inch piece of black poster board over top of that, making sure again to seal down around the edges as well as in the middle. And then I took this printout from my computer, which I will provide a link in the description box for. And then I took my poster board and I just marked lines on there from where I was going to place the words. And the first line I put down 6 inches from the top, and then all the subsequent lines 4 inches from the last. Next I took some chalk, but I shortly actually discovered I didn't need to do this. But this first one I did do the chalk on the back of the printout. And then I'm just going to flip the piece of paper back over, line it up there on that line that I had drawn, and then just begin to trace the letter on the front side, and then that chalk transfers the image to the black poster board. And then there you can see it, but what I discovered was that actually between the foam and the poster board, it created an indent. I'm not used to doing that. I'm used to doing this on kind of more solid surfaces. So I was pleasantly surprised that this was the result of doing it with this combination of the poster board and the foam board. It enabled a imprint, an indent into the surface. And so no need for the chalk. And I was able to just go ahead and trace the letters, then go back with a paint marker to fill in the outline. Now, instead of using the marker to fill in all of the letters, I decided to go ahead and just do paint with a paintbrush, try to conserve my paint marker a little bit. And so I'm just going along with a paintbrush and some white chalk paint and filling in all the letters. Now to create a frame, I'm going to use these shims. Now I've used these before. These are construction shims, very inexpensive. They come like, these are the 12-inch ones, the 12-inch pines. So these come 12 to a pack. I believe it's like $1.48 at Lowe's. You can buy them Home Depot, any type of construction store. And you can see how they cut super easy, especially there at the tapered ends. And so to create the frame, I'm going to cut 4 of the shims at 10 inches and then 4 of them at 9 inches. Then I'm going to go back with those end pieces and cut 4 little square type shapes here with the ends. And you'll see what I do with those when we get to that point. But I just wanted to create 4 of those along with the 4 9-inch and 4 10-inch. Next, I wanted to create a little stain for my shims. So I took some brown craft paint and diluted it with a little bit of water, and then just went ahead and painted all of my shims with the craft paint stain. Next, I took some black craft paint just to do a little distressing there around the edges, as well as a little dry brushing there to the top. Then once my paint was dry, I took the shims and using some wood glue, attached them to the sides of the poster board. And so what I'm doing is I'm using those 10-inch pieces to the left and right sides of the poster board, and I'm putting that kind of chunkier end there at the very top and very bottom with the tapered ends coming in to meet in the middle. And then I do again the 2 10 inches on the left and the right, and then the 9-inch cuts are going to go in on the middle. So I'll just take those, place those down again with that chunkier edge towards the outside, the tapered edge towards the middle, and I'll do that on the top, and then just go ahead and repeat the process on the bottom. And then for the last step, I'm just going to take those little squares that I cut. I'm going to just add some glue to the back and then just place the little squares over where the 2 tapered ends meet in the middle. And I'll do that for all 4 sides. And then here is the finished project, a beautiful and large 20 by 20 inch faux farmhouse chalkboard sign with a wood frame and a Christmas lyric that the world can really use right now. If you saw the first video in this series, then this next DIY is going to look a little familiar, as I deconstruct the frame the same as I did this Joy to the World tree from video 1. Okay, on to DIY number 2, and for this one I'm going to again use that nutmeg colored paint and one of these Dollar Tree boxes and then 2 packs of the large paint sticks. And I want to take the nutmeg paint and I'm just diluting it with some water because I just want to create a little stain for both the wood box and the paint sticks. And then once the stain is dry, I'm going to go back with a dry brush of some white chalk paint. And I'm going to do both the paint sticks and the little wood box. Next, I'm going to pull out my miter box and saw and cut down my paint sticks. Now, I want to keep one of the paint sticks whole, and then the others I'm going to cut into a 12-inch piece, a 10-inch piece, an 8-inch piece, a 6-inch piece, a 4-inch piece, and a 2-inch piece on top. Then I'm going to use some wood glue to attach my cut sticks to the center pole. Then I just took some of these boxwood greens that I purchased from Walmart for 98 cents. And then I just began cutting and hot gluing some pieces of that boxwood to the horizontal wood strips. As I got towards the center, I just cut smaller and smaller pieces so that it would fit better. And in the center, I'll be cutting the smallest pieces of all. And I'm going to kind of make them stand up straight a little bit as opposed to laying over to the side. And I'll also be making sure to keep a space between those two horizontal strips. And then I'll just continue the process for each of the strips. For the top of the tree, I'm going to cut 3 pieces about 3 inches long. I want the top to just kind of hang over the edge there a little bit because I do want to attach a bow there at the top. So I cut 2 at about 3 inches, and then that one in the middle is probably about 2 inches long. To decorate, I'm going to use some of these white berries that I got from Walmart and some of these frosted pine cones that I got from the Dollar Tree. And then I'm going to just arrange them, a couple of pine cones to 2 or 3 berries, and I'll do one in the left section, one in the center, and then one in the right-hand side of the tree. And then I'll repeat that pattern for each section all the way up the tree, just hot gluing them into place. And then for my tree topper, I just took some of this burlap polka dot ribbon that I purchased from Michael's and created a little bow and hot glued that to the top. Next, I inserted the end of the tree into the box that I had painted earlier and had already placed some floral foam inside. And then there's that little hole on the top of the box. I just went ahead and inserted the tree right through that hole, right into the foam. And here is the finished project, a beautiful farmhouse boxwood Christmas tree, perfect for a mantle, entry table, or a hutch, or even to serve as your tree if you have a small space. For the next DIY, I'm going to head on over to my recyclables and grab some milk cartons. To start, I took a half-gallon container and I removed the lid, but I'm going to hold that aside because that's actually going to be used in a upcoming DIY. And then I just opened up the top of the container. And now I'm going to remove that little plastic spout on the one side there. And so to do that, I kind of just pressed down around it and kind of got my nails in between the two edges there. And then you just kind of push it and pull it out, and just be careful because it can rip the cardboard. So If you're just careful, it'll just pop right out and you'll be able to remove it easily. When saving containers for future projects, my suggestion would be to do this step as soon as you are done with the contents. So for example, when you're finished with the milk, open up the container and wash and rinse and just store like this until you're ready to use. So you can make sure it's clean and you don't have any unpleasant surprises. When the container is open, you can still see the creases in a triangle formation. So what I did is I just went and took a pair of scissors and cut along that crease all the way through to the top of the carton. And then I just repeated the process on the other side. Now I'm just going to take those flaps and fold them in and then reattach the top of the carton, and you'll see how it makes a little house shape. Now before gluing everything in place, you may want to add some weight to the bottom of the carton, especially if it's going to be in a place where it could easily be knocked over. And so I just added some of these river rocks from the Dollar Tree, just glued them in and put like 2 or 3 in to hold it down. Now I'm going to just secure everything back in place with the hot glue. So I just take that little triangular flap and pull it down and put some glue along the edges there. Then again, I refold the carton, this time with the flap out, the little triangular flap out, and then adhering it to the sides. And you'll see it on the other side a little better as to where the flaps were when I secured the triangle to the side. So from this side you can see it a little better. So the 2 flaps go behind the triangle, the glue is going to go on the edges, and then those flaps just kind of fold one on top of the other, and then the glue gets adheres to those sides. And then I just went back with some hot glue along the top and secured it there. So this is what the carton should look like once all the sides have been glued in place. And then it was ready to paint, and I used some of this ultra matte white spray paint, but you could also use brush paint as well. For the little tin roof, I used these cookie sheets from the Dollar Tree. I used scissors to cut all around the edges since I only wanted that bumpy part in the middle. Then I took a ruler and I measured across 4 inches because I wanted to create a 4-inch strip of the foil. Once my 4-inch strip was cut, I just placed it on the roof and folded it around. I did leave a little bit of an edge on this side, which you'll see in a second, but then I just put it on the roof and then just kind of pinched it on the top to create that little roof line. And here you can see on the side, I left it with a little bit of a lip on the edge. And here it is if it was just flush. I decided that I did like the little lip on the end versus just a flush cut, but you know, there's another option of what it would look like if you wanted to go with a cleaner cut. I then used some hot glue to attach the tin roof to the top of the carton. To make the barn doors, I just took my ruler and marked off the 3-inch line. And then I just centered it there, eyeballed it on the carton. I didn't want to sit there and do all the math, but just eyeballing it was fine. And then I just marked each edge of the 3 inches and then the midpoint of the 3 inches, which would be 1.5 inches. And then I just took my ruler again and then measured up 3 inches and made marks there at the top of the 3 inches on each side. And then I just took my ruler and I connected all of the marks. To make the X of the barn door, I took my ruler and just drew a diagonal line from corner to corner on each door and then reversed it and did corner to corner on the opposite angles. To do the Farmhouse Christmas lettering, I took this printout from my computer, and I will have a link in the description box. And then I just cut it out. Now, for this printable, I did do a reverse image or mirror image print. So all you need to do is, after it's been cut out, just lay it face down, print side down on the surface, and then that image will transfer via the ink of the printer. And then I just placed the printout above the barn doors and went in with a pencil then and just scribbled along the back. I started here just going on the F. I usually do that for the larger letters, but since this is a smaller printout, I just went back and just scribbled over the top. And that's all you need to really do, is just scribble over the top for both words. And this is how it comes out. And I found that I can do this with just regular paper. I don't need to use wax paper or anything. It will work with regular printer paper. Now this does give a more weathered look, and that would be great if that's what I was going for, but I will be going over this with a Sharpie. But before I do that, I went back with a paint marker to do the tracing of the barn doors. Now, because I was hasty and again did not let that dry, it did smudge. So I had to go back and paint that white again and let that dry. So in the meantime, I decided I would just go ahead and make my little 3D wreath. And I just took a piece of pine. This is just from a Dollar Tree wreath. I just cut 2 pieces off and just folded them around in a half circle, and then put the 2 pieces together, and I created the little wreath. And then I just applied some hot glue and attached it in place. Now I'm going to do the lettering with the Sharpie marker. And then I went back to finish the doors, learning my lesson to let each line dry before moving on to the next. Then I took my paint marker and just outlined around the roof line. Finally, to add a little galvanized effect to my tin roof, I took a little medium gray paint and a piece of a plastic shopping bag and just dabbed it all around to give the roof an aged galvanized look. And then a little dry brush distressing finished the piece. And then here is the finished project, a cute little farmhouse Christmas house, a perfect decoration to add to any farmhouse Christmas decor. Next up is Style 5, Traditional Christmas. Nothing says classic Christmas quite like green pine with red decorations. And most classic of all is the pine wreath, and I'll be making this version using a couple of Dollar Tree 18-inch wreaths. Now, these are pretty skimpy. I started by fluffing them out as much as possible. I did this with 2 wreaths, and then I put the 2 together to form a thicker and fuller wreath. I secured the 2 together by taking a branch from one wreath and wrapping it around the other, and I did that in 4 or 5 sections of the wreaths. For the decoration, I'll be using these Dollar Tree Christmas balls. They have both plain and glitter in this package. And then I will also be using this ribbon that's kind of like a glittery finish to it. And then also these picks from Walmart. Now I'm choosing the Walmart picks. I just think the Walmart ones are nicer. They're also only $1, but Dollar Tree also has some great ones to choose from as well. Then I'm going to take a pick and insert it into the wreath, and I'm going to slide it there between the 2 frames of the wreaths. And then with the end, I'm going to just kind of twist it around one of the frames there, and that'll just secure it in place. I have 5 picks all together, and I'm going to start the next pick so that the top of that next pick is pretty much at the bottom of the other, so that there's a nice spacing all the way around. And after I've put all 5 of the picks in, I'm going to leave a space up there for my bow, but I'm going to go back with my Christmas balls now. And I will be using only the glitter balls from that package. And so what I want to do is take where the ornament hanger is. Now you could attach these with a wire. I'm going to just go ahead and hot glue them in. So I added some glue to the top, and then I'm just going to go ahead and place them. In this arrangement, I'm going to place these Christmas balls pretty much everywhere where I have one of the acorns. So that'll line it up and give me some good spacing. Once all my balls are placed, I'm going to go ahead and make my bow. I'm going to use that glitzy ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to make it's not a really large space there for the bow. So I'm going to make a multi-loop bow, but it's going to have pretty small loops, maybe only about 2.5, 3 inches for each loop. And I'm going to just loop them around on each side, holding the middle between my thumb and forefinger. And it just kind of goes around and around, just looping it. And there's probably about 8 or so loops on there until I get to the end. And then I'll just pull that around. And what's nice about this is that it doesn't have 2 sides. You don't have to worry about having the one side showing. And you can just use, now here I'm going to just use a pipe cleaner to secure the middle and twist it around, and then leave a little excess on the end there so that I can attach it to the wreath. Now you don't need to make a bow like this. Dollar Tree has some beautiful bows. I was just in there today, and they have some gorgeous bows already made, probably the best I've ever seen them have, quite a selection. And you can just go ahead and pick up one of those and they'll do just as well. And then once the bow was attached to the wreath, I just went back with some scissors and cut some fresh ends. And then here is the finished project, beautiful and bright in those bold green and reds, looking like it just came from a display in a Macy's department store. It's so pretty. How about we make a coordinating swag? To do so, I'm going to use 4 of these Dollar Tree little green trees, and I'm going to just kind of fluff these out again as well. Just kind of leave them flat, but fluffed out. Then I'm going to put 2 on top of each other, one sticking about 3 or 4 inches above the other. And then I want to attach the 2 with some zip ties. And I'll place the first one towards the top of where the 2 meet. And then I'll add another towards the bottom. And then a third there in the middle. And then I'll cut off all those little tails and then go ahead and make a second one of these with the other 2 trees. Once I have the 2 sets completed, I'm going to go ahead and attach the 2 sets together. So I'm going to do that by taking the 2 ends and kind of overlapping them a little bit, and then going ahead with some more zip ties and attaching those 2 pieces together. And then now you can see what it looks like when those have been put together. To decorate, I'm again going to use that glittery ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to start by just bunching one end of that ribbon up a little bit and then twisting it around one of the branches of my evergreen. Then I'll run the ribbon diagonally across to the other side of my swag and again get another piece of that pine branch and just twist it around the ribbon to secure it. And I'll continue to do this all the way down the length of the swag. Next, I'm going to take my picks. Now, these are the same ones that I used for the wreath that I purchased from Walmart. And I'm just going to place the picks in the little sections that were created by the ribbon, by attaching the ribbon in that diagonal fashion across the swag. And so every spot that has a little area created by those ribbons, I'm going to go ahead and add one of these picks. And I'll do it the same way where I wrap the end of the pick around one of the branches in order to secure it in place. And then once all the picks are secured, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the Christmas balls, again using just the glitter ones, and I'll be attaching them in the same way, close to those little acorns and also with some hot glue. And then I'm just going to go ahead and attach a matching bow. Also, if you want to get some more control over your picks, if they're not laying the way you want them to, you can always take pieces of the branches of the swag and just kind of twist it around the sections of the pick that you want to hold in place. And then here is the finished project, a beautiful coordinating swag to go over a doorway, on a mantle, or anywhere you want to add a little traditional elegance. Next, I'm going to be making a centerpiece, and to do that, I'm going to use one of these Dollar Tree squares that I cut in half, and then I'm going to cover the entire piece of foam with some glue. You can use any kind of glue. I just had tacky glue there, but you can certainly use just regular school glue. And then I'm going to just take some of the floral moss, and I'm going to cover the entire surface of the foam with the moss. But then, no sooner did I do that I remembered I wanted to actually have a candle in a hurricane vase in the middle. So after I put everything on, I had to turn around and clear the center for the candle and the vase. To decorate the base, I'm going to use these poinsettias that I got from the Dollar Tree, as well as some of these evergreen stems that I purchased from Walmart. Now again, Dollar Tree does have some evergreen stems that you can use. I just actually happen to have these on hand and wanted to use these. But either way, you're going to just kind of put a base of the evergreen around. So I'm going to just stick one of these stems into each one of the 4 sides of my square. I just cut it down a little bit there as well because the stems were a little long. And then once I had all 4 of my evergreens in the base, I went back with my poinsettias and just started adding those in, one to each side of the pine cone there to create a nice balance of where I placed the poinsettias. And then the poinsettias also had some little pine cones as well as some berries and pine included with them, so I went ahead and used those as well in my arrangement. And then lastly, I just took a vase and a candle, and here you can see the finished project. So pretty and elegant for a dining table, coffee table, or anywhere, again, you want to add a little traditional elegance. For the last DIY, I'm going to make a large cone out of a poster board, like the way I did for the feather tree in the Glam episode of this series, where I took a white poster board that I purchased from the Dollar Tree, and I just marked the midpoint there at the top and then drew a line with a yardstick to each corner. And then I just went ahead and cut the triangle out. Next, I took some twine and I taped it there to the top of the table and then put the point of the triangle right underneath. Then I measured up about 2 inches from the bottom of the triangle and placed a pencil there and then tied the twine, the other end of the twine, to the pencil at that point. Then I just took the pencil and traced along the side, allowing the twine to kind of guide me in that round shape that it'll create now that it's kind of restrained by the twine. And then I just took some scissors and cut out the shape along those lines that I had just drawn. Next, I took some packing tape and I'm going to just fold my triangle around now and just start there at the top where I'm just kind of crunching it around so that I can really try to make this cone shape. And then I'll just take that first piece of packing tape and twist it around there at the top You want to secure that piece first. And then I'll just continue down that seam with some packing tape. And I want to pretty much cover the entire seam. I'm kind of going in pieces there at the top and then the bottom, and then I go back and fill it all in. And then once I have my cone shape, I just painted it with some green craft paint. Next, I took some Dollar Tree garland, and using some hot glue, I began to attach it to the cone. So I started there at the bottom, and I just put on some hot glue and then stuck the garland right into the hot glue, and then held it there in place until that glue was set. And then just moved around another section of the cone, added a little bit more hot glue, and continued that way, just attaching the garland all the way around the bottom, and then going up to the next level, just wrapping the entire cone with the garland, adding some hot glue here and there until the entire cone was covered. Next, I took some more of the poinsettia flowers. This time I removed them from the stems, and then I just began hot gluing them to the tree. I started at the bottom and I just glued a row of the poinsettias all the way around. For the second row, I again hot glued the poinsettia, but this time I started it in between where the two were on the bottom. So if you see on that first row, there's one to the left, one to the right. So when I started the second row, I started it in between the two of those. And then I just continued that pattern all the way up the side of the tree. To create a little stand for my poinsettia tree, I took a Pringles can and this top to a pods container from a laundry pods container, and then I'm going to just glue that on top, and then what will happen is the poinsettia tree will sit right on top of that, so that when it's on the tree it'll kind of look like this. But of course we don't want it to have a Pringles can on the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and spray that with some gold spray paint. And here is the finished project, a gorgeous poinsettia topiary tree. And here you can see the little Pringle can turned gold base. But you could also just leave it baseless or use a candle holder or a vase that would work equally as well. Next up is style number 6, Jewel Tone Bling Christmas. For the first DIY, I'm going to use one of these glitter garland trees, which I'm just going to remove that glitter garland. And when I do, it looks like this. It's just this green skeleton remains, and also a margarita glass. Both of these are from the Dollar Tree. And then I'm going to take both the tree skeleton and the margarita glass and paint them both with some of this brilliant gold spray paint. And then here is what they look like once they are finished. Now I did take one of these small Dollar Tree Christmas balls in gold. I didn't want to pull it back out after I stuck it in there, but I just squished it way up to the top, and then I just began hot gluing in larger balls because they will fall through. They have to be the kind of mid-sized balls there that they have at the Dollar Tree, because they'll fall through the little grating there if they're not. But I do use the smaller gold ones to kind of fill in some of the spots where the two or three of the larger balls wouldn't fit. So I'm using 3 of the different colored, the green, the red, and the blue in the mid-size Christmas ball from Dollar Tree, and then that small one I just have in the gold. And then I'll just continue placing them into the tree skeleton, I suppose you could say, and then just kind of hot gluing them where I can. Just want to kind of keep them in place because especially when I flip them over now, I need to have them where they will stay secure so they don't fall into the glass. So once I have those all put in, all the Christmas balls put into my tree skeleton, I'm just going to flip it over, and then I'm going to take my margarita glass that I've painted with the gold paint, and I'm just going to add some E6000 glue there to the rim, and then just place my Christmas ball tree right on top. And then here is the finished project. You can see how pretty it looks. You can make multiples of them and create a great look for your Christmas decor. For the next DIY, I'm again going to be using the gold spray paint, and this time I'm going to be spraying this bath mat that I got at the Dollar Tree. Now here's what it looks like once it's painted. Now I only painted the center section. That was just because I'm going to be cutting off those ends, and I just wanted to conserve on paint. And so I'm just counting in 2 rows there from where the pattern kind of goes straight, where it's not on that curve. And then I'm just going to take a scissors and cut that piece off. And then this leaves you quite a nice size piece. You can even do another project with that. But I'm going to just put that aside for now because I want to go back to this main piece. That's the one I'm going to be working with on this project. And so on this other side, I'm going to just cut right where the pattern again goes straight. So it goes on that curve, and then right where it goes straight, that's where I'm going to make my cut. Next, I'm going to take a Dollar Tree tall cylinder vase, and I'm going to be using the bath mat as an overlay. And so I'm going to be doing this though not as a vase but as a candlestick. So I'm actually going to flip the bottom to the top so that I can have a candle sit on top. And then I just want some of that top scalloping to be a little bit over the edge. So I measured it so that the bottom will have this nice flat end, but then the top will have that scalloped edge. And also I'm going to be using, instead of this kind of dome-shaped side, which would make a gorgeous overlay, it would be so pretty just like that, just without anything on it, just a gold overlay would be gorgeous. But what I want to do is use that concave side because I want to put gemstones in the spaces there. So I'm going to be actually using it on the kind of outside. And so I'm going to just apply it with some E6000 glue, put it in all the places where the domes will touch the vase, and then I'll just wrap my bath mat, my vase in the bath mat. And then I just added some rubber bands to secure the mat in place as the glue dried. And now it's time to bedazzle. And so I'm going to use some of these Dollar Tree gems. I have these red rubies as well as some of these diamond snowflakes. And so I'm going to do the red rubies first, and I'm going to apply those all to the little round sections, as you can guess. And next I'm going to go ahead with my little snowflake diamonds and add those in the spot in between, kind of catacorner and in between. And then once that was done, I went back with my blue and green gemstones, and then here is what it looked like when it was all finished. A very festive Christmas, not only jewel tone, but bejeweled Christmas decor piece. Now, don't forget though how pretty it looked just doing the plain flip side in the gold only to make a beautiful year-round piece. And then let's keep the bedazzling and bejeweling going with the same gemstones, but this time I'm going to be using this gorgeous charger plate that I found at the Dollar Tree. So this one's a little different than their regular gold charger. It has more of an antique finish and larger little dots there along the side. It's really pretty and the perfect piece to include in this old world jewel toned style. So I'm going to just add these gemstones around the edge of the charger. I'm going to use some of this Ultimate Craft glue to apply the stickers. Now they have a sticker on the back, but of course you want to use a little extra glue because you want those little gems to stay on. So what I'm doing is I'm just counting down 11 little dots, and every 11 dots is where I put the next little ruby. And then in between, I'll alternate the green and blue little gemstones. And then here is the finished project. Wow, what an upgrade. It makes a beautiful display piece, and you can also use it as a charger plate for a place setting fit for royalty. For the next DIY, I'm going to use the shower curtain rings from the Dollar Tree. And so I'm just going to make sure that the clasps are joined together. And then I'm going to take 2 of the shower rings. I'm using some zip ties. I'm going to zip tie the 2 together right there at the clasp. And then I just want to pull the 2 rings side by side, cut the tail off of that zip tie, and then I want to go ahead and make 7 of these sets. Now I'll be making a tree out of these rings, so what I want to do is take 2 of the sets and zip tie those two together. And then I'll take those two sets, so those 4 rings, and zip tie those to a third set of rings to make a 6-ring row for the bottom level of the tree. Now for the next level of the tree, I'm going to go in between there with single rings and just zip tie those single rings to either side there of the clasp at the bottom of the ring. So I'll put one to the right of the clasp and then one to the left of the clasp. And then I'll repeat that for the entire row. For the next row, I'm going to take 2 of my 2 sets that I've joined together and then do a single row again on top of that, and then one of the double sets, and then a single one there to the top. And then I'll take my last double set and I'll just create the tree stump at the bottom and then spray everything with the gold spray paint. And then here's what it looks like after it's been painted. And now I'm going to just, again, one last time, or maybe not, maybe I do a little more bedazzling in the next DIY as well, but I'm going to do a few jewels here. These are some gem jewels that I got from the floral area at Dollar Tree. And in that little triangle there on the first row, I'm going to put all of the ruby colored ones, and then that second row will get sapphires, and then I will alternate it all the way to the top. And I am attaching these with some hot glue. And then here's another look at the finished project. This piece makes a beautiful wall hanging for a touch of jeweled glamour to add to your Christmas decor. For the next DIY, I'm going to be transforming these plastic nutcrackers from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to be painting them with some chalk paint to give them more of a wood finish look. Now this is going to be kind of like paint by numbers in that I'm going to simply paint the plastic with the same color or close to the same color of the chalk paint. So for example, for this nutcracker, I'm going to just use some of the Waverly chalk paint in the color lacquer, and I'm just going to go over all of the red and paint it with this chalk paint. Now this one I did give 2 coats to, and again, I'm trying to do here is to create a difference in the texture. So I'm trying to transform it from looking less like plastic and more like wood. And so I'll just continue painting the nutcracker, changing all the colors as I go, making sure to also get the hat as well as the boots. And I'm just going to be painting over all that gold trim since I'm going to be using some of this gold leaf to paint the accents. And so I'm going to start with the cuffs. And then I'm also going to paint the epaulettes there at the shoulder. I just love using gold leaf. A little bit goes a long way and it gives a great gilded effect. I'll also be using it on this, I don't know what this is. This is like an axe sword jousting thing? I'm not certain. But anyway, anything that is a gold tone on my little nutcrackers, I'm going to cover in this gold leaf. And I'm also going to do the buttons and the other decorations on the uniform. Now, I did remove the little beard before I paint it, and so I just got some hot glue and stuck that back on. Now, you know we weren't getting out of this without at least a little bit of bedazzling, and so I took some of these Dollar Tree gemstone stickers and placed them around his crown and his boots, and even gave him a couple of diamond cufflinks. His little friend got a ruby crown along with some diamond cufflinks and also some diamonds on his boots and belt buckle. And then this guy got a large diamond snowflake on his helmet, as well as some diamond cufflinks and boots. And then this guy got some emeralds and pearls. And then to create a base for my nutcrackers to stand on, I took these little present ornaments from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to remove that top, and then I'm going to paint them all with some of the gold spray paint. And then I went back and just painted all of the bases that were attached to the nutcrackers with the gold leaf paint. And then here's the finished project, our 4 Dollar Tree nutcrackers painted in beautiful jewel tones with just a little touch of bedazzling. Next up is style number 7, Glam Christmas. For the first project, I took a white poster board that I purchased from the Dollar Tree, and I just marked the midpoint there at the top and then drew a line with a yardstick to each corner. And then I just went ahead and cut the triangle out. Next, I took some twine and I taped it there to the top of the table and then put the point of the triangle right underneath. Then I measured up about 2 inches from the bottom of the triangle and placed a pencil there, and then tied the twine, the other end of the twine, to the pencil at that point. Then I just took the pencil and traced along the side, allowing the twine to kind of guide me in that round shape that it'll create now that it's kind of restrained by the twine. And then I just took some scissors and cut out the shape along those lines that I had just drawn. Next, I took some packing tape, and I'm going to just fold my triangle around now and just start there at the top, where I'm just kind of crunching it around so that I can really try to make this cone shape. And then I'll just take that first piece of packing tape and twist it around there at the top. You want to secure that piece first. And then I'll just continue down that seam with some packing tape. And I want to pretty much cover the entire seam. I'm kind of going in pieces there at the top and then the bottom, and then I go back and fill it all in. Next, I took some of these feather boas from the Dollar Tree. Now these are in the kids section. They're also right now in the Halloween section, so you can find them in both places. And I just kind of folded it in half, and then I'm going to just take some hot glue and go right down that seam. I'll start there, and I'll attach the boa, the kind of spine of that boa there, just trying to getting that middle piece in where all the feathers are attached. And then I'm going to just flip that boa around to the other side, directly across, add some more hot glue, and just secure the feather boa down that other side of the cone. Then I'll take a second feather boa, again, kind of to the midpoint. I'll fold it in half at the midpoint, and then just take some more hot glue along where I had attached that first piece. Just add some more glue there, and then again, taking that, kind of working with the spine of the boa, just attach the boa, one side of it there, next to that first piece that was attached. And then once that is secure, I'll go with the other half of the boa and bring it there right along the side, again with some hot glue, just gluing that down and getting the other half of the boa and securing it into place. And then I'm just going to flip the cone over, again take a third boa and do the attachment with the hot glue exactly the same way, now on the other side of the cone. Now, after the 3 boas have been attached, there's going to be a small space on both sides that needs to be filled in. And so I just took a 4th boa, cut it in half, and just added that to both sides with some hot glue again. And here you can see the finished tree dramatically blowing in the wind as I took it outside to take some pictures. I thought it was so funny. I wanted to show you how glamorous and dramatic it looked blowing in the wind. And here it is without all the drama, just so pretty to be on a mantle or a table, giving a great glam look. For the next DIY, I'm going to be using 2 of these Dollar Tree water glasses. They come 5 to a pack. You get those in the party section. And I'm going to just spray those with some white spray paint. And then here is what the cups look like once they've been painted. Then I'm going to take some of these Dollar Tree spoons. You get these also at the party section. And I'm going to just use some wire cutters to remove the tops. And then I'm going to use some hot glue just there at where I cut, and then also in the middle of the spoon stem. And I'm going to hot glue those to the sides of the cup. And I'm only putting the glue in those spots because that's where, with the curve of the spoon, where it touches. And then I'll continue to do that all the way around the cup. I am skipping in this design of this cup. It has like these little ridges. So I'll glue in a section, then skip a section, then glue in a section and skip a section. Next, I took these absolutely gorgeous ornaments from the Dollar Tree. They come just like this. They're so pretty. And also a couple of Dollar Tree skewers. And I'm going to just remove the tops of the ornaments just by pulling it out. If you have a little trouble with it, a pair of pliers will also help to just pull that out. For the oblong one, I want to retain this little faux metal piece at the top, but I do want to get rid of that loop there, so I just took some wire cutters and cut that off. Now, at the bottom of the ornaments, they do have these little mirror squares, and I want to remove like 4 of them there at the bottom. And you can do that kind of either with your nails or tweezers, or kind of using these wire cutters to kind of help me along. But just remove that little piece because I wanted to leave that space open for when I put the skewer through. And so I'm going to take the skewers and I'm going to cut them to about, I don't know, about 3 or 4 inches. and then just put the two pieces together, the two ornaments together with the skewer. And so again, just remove that bottom piece, cut a piece of skewer about 3 to 4 inches long, and then just attach all the ornaments with the skewers in that way. Next, I took the little cup with the attached spoons, and that's going to serve as the base for the topiary. But before I attach it, I do want to create these little rhinestone collars, and I'm going to be using this adhesive diamond wrap from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut 3 rows, a strip that has 3 rows wide, and then I'm going to kind of just measure it so that it overlaps, measure it right there on the topiary, just so that I can see where about maybe a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch piece overlaps. And then I want to remove the adhesive strip on that piece just so that I can attach, kind of overlap the two and attach that to create this little collar in between the topiaries and just give it a more finished look. And then I just took that smaller piece and did the same thing to the next set of ornaments. Then I just got some E6000 glue and also some hot glue. Now I'm doing the hot glue just so that it gives me that temporary hold. E6000 is what will hold it long term, but just so that it stays in place. And then once the glue was dry, I took another strip of that adhesive wrap, and this time it's about 6 rows wide. I just wanted to be wide enough to cover that gap there between the bottom ornament and the cup. And I again just cut a piece of that backing off about 1/2 inch. Now I am adding some hot glue as well, and I did actually go back for the upper pieces and add some hot glue to better secure that adhesive strip. And then I did go ahead and make another topiary, this time with 2 of the round ornaments at the bottom. And I made it the same way as I made the first, just adding that extra ornament to make it a little taller. And you can see how pretty they are, glimmering and glistening in the light. So pretty on a mantle, sofa table, or coffee table, or anywhere you want to add a little extra Christmas glam. For this next piece, I'll be using a Dollar Tree snowflake ornament, as well as these letters that I picked up at Walmart for $1.47, and 2 of the 5-gallon paint sticks. And to start, I took the 2 paint sticks and I took the tapered edge and the straight edge and kind of put them face to face. And then I took some of my wood glue and I just want to glue the 2 sticks together in that fashion. Now this piece is inspired by a piece I saw in Big Lots, so if you don't feel like making this, definitely check out their version. And then I just took all the pieces except for the snowflake and painted them all with some of this silver metallic finish spray paint. And then here's what the letters look like after they've been painted. And so to those, I want to add some of my adhesive wrap from the Dollar Tree, as well as some of these fabulous rhinestones that I picked up at Walmart. And so to do the letters, what I want to do is just kind of do the cross pieces or the horizontal pieces first. And so I'm going to just be doing single strips of the rhinestones across all of the horizontal parts of the letter. And then for the skinny parts of my letter, I'm going to just be doing again a single strip of the rhinestones. And so any parts that are like on this end where it's kind of a thinner piece of wood, I'll just go ahead and place one strip of the rhinestones in that spot. Then for my thicker parts of the letter, I'm going to be doing 2 strips of rhinestones. And then in between those strips, I'm going to be using some single rows of the adhesive wrap. And then I'll do the E and the L in the same way. For the wider angles on both the E and the L, I did go back with some single rhinestones and just kind of place them and fill in that space a little bit. Before attaching the letters to my paint stick base, I did want to dress them up a little bit. So I took some of these jewel border stickers, and these I also got from the Dollar Tree. They're just so pretty. I'm going to use them somewhere. So I picked those up, and then I'm just going to attach them all the way around, covering that seam of the two paint sticks. And then to attach to the letters, I'm going to use a little wood glue as well as a little hot glue. Now the hot glue again is just going to hold it so that the wood glue can set up. But for the little snowflake, I am only going to be using some hot glue. And then here is the finished project. I'm just loving how this came out. It's just so pretty and elegant and makes such a beautiful statement piece. For my last project, I took 2 of these foam cubes from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut about 1 inch, maybe 3/4 inch off the back of each of the cubes. Then I'm going to take a wood skewer and cut it in half, and I'm going to insert 1/2 of each of those into one of the cubes, and then just kind of push the 2 pieces together so that those skewers hold the 2 pieces somewhat together. And then I'm going to use again this adhesive wrap cut into single strips, and I'm going to place those around the front of my 2 cubes. And this is kind of going to hold them in place a little bit better. And then what I'm going to do is just take some hot glue and make sure that these pieces stay down. And then I'll just do the same all the way around the top and bottom of the cubes. Next, I took some of these silver branches from the Dollar Tree and I cut pieces that I'm going to now use some hot glue to attach them to the front of the foam. And so it creates this great little inlaid look, like an inlaid wood. Not that it looks like wood, but it just has that kind of inlay effect. And so I'm going to just continue to do this, adding some of the hot glue to the back, and then I just place the branches and then kind of just wind them around to where they kind of fill in the space in a very willowy fashion, just kind of adding some glue here and there just in order to hold everything down and in place. And then for that gap in the middle, the branches have one that has a kind of a thick middle piece, and so that's the one I chose to put in the middle to cover that gap. And then again, just kind of cutting little pieces here and there and filling in the design as I go. And I'll continue to do this all the way around the base, in between those 2 strips of the adhesive wrap, creating a beautiful little base for my vignette. Now for the top, I want to create a little snow-covered effect. So I'm going to take some of this faux snow from the Dollar Tree. I'm also going to use some regular school glue and just kind of push that all over the top. Now in the middle there, I just placed another piece of that foam. Now this is from what I had cut off already. I just want to create a little square there that I'm going to attach as well with some more skewers, so that it'll stay in place there. And then I want to cover that with some glue as well. And then just make sure I get the glue all the way around. I want to get it into all those kind of corners there and underneath. Just want to make sure everywhere that I want to have the snow stick, I have some glue there on the surface. And then I just took a few more cuttings of my silver branches, and I wanted to cover the sides of the little platform that I built. And I'm going to just put those pieces all the way around. Next, I cut long pieces of my branches, and I'm going to just go ahead and insert the tallest ones there right behind the platform, and then just kind of taper down in the height as I go along the back of the piece, inserting the silver branches all along the back there. And now that we've made this beautiful stage, we now have something to place our beautiful ballerina ornaments from the Dollar Tree. Look how gorgeous these things are. As soon as I saw them, I knew I had to make something with them. And so I got the one that has her arms raised, and then 2 of, these are exactly the same, these 2. I'm going to just kind of put one with her arm extended to the left and one with her arm extended to the right. So they do have these little ornament hanger loops on them, and so I just went ahead with some wire cutters and removed those very carefully. And then I just used their toe shoes to insert them right into the foam. Now I did add a little hot glue as well before inserting them, but again, I just used the one ballerina. These two on the ends are the same. I just put one in one direction, one in the other. And then here you can see the finished project, again, glimmering and glistening in the light. It's so pretty. I just love these little ballerinas and knew I had to just create a beautiful little stage for them. And it makes such an elegant vignette. And it can also be a great gift for someone, especially if they love dance or the ballet or just things that are pretty, elegant, and feminine. Next up is Style 8, Retro Christmas. For this first DIY, I'm going to be using a selection of retro ornaments from Walmart, as well as some blue paint, a thick piece of cardboard, and this margarita glass from Dollar Tree. I wanted to match the blue color of the Christmas balls on the ornaments. So I took a couple different colors of paint to kind of just mix it together. It doesn't have to be exactly accurate. I just wanted to get it as close as I could to the color on the Christmas balls. And then I just mixed those two colors together and then added a little water to the paint mixture. And then that's going to allow me to get kind of a runny paint that I can then just kind of coat the inside of my margarita glass. Now I'll just do that by continuing to twirl the glass around and then tapping it on a covered surface to remove any of the excess paint. In order to color the stem and the bottom of the glass, I will go ahead and brush paint the paint mixture right on top. Before painting the glass, I went ahead and traced an outline of the top of the glass onto the cardboard. And while the paint's drying, I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, along with another rectangular piece of the cardboard that I just kind of folded up and then hot glued the side to keep it together. And now I'm going to just hot glue that piece to my circular piece. Now this is going to serve as an insert for my margarita glass. So I'm going to paint it with some white paint and then sprinkle it with some of the Dollar Tree fake snow. Now to create a retro mercury glass type finish for my margarita glass, I'm going to take some silver metallic spray paint and also a crumpled up piece of plastic bag, which I'll use to dab the wet spray paint once it is applied. And here you can see I've sprayed a section of the glass with the spray paint, and now I'm just going back and dabbing it off with the piece of plastic bag. And then you can see where that creates a great kind of mercury glass finish. And I'll just continue to do this all over the surface of the glass, including the stem and the bottom. Next, I'll take my snow-covered insert and just place that into the bottom stem of the glass. There's a little kind of alcove there it can stick in. But before I begin to decorate, I'm going to take a couple of these little wood blocks from Dollar Tree and create some risers. I'm going to do one single one and then two put together, and then I'm going to cover them both with some of the snow. I also removed all of the little hooks and ornament hangers at the top of the ornaments as well. And then I just decorated my scene, starting with the large tree to the back left. And I did use hot glue to attach all of the little figures. And then the little deer right to the front, kind of leaning on the tree a little bit for some extra support. And then one of the small trees there to the left. And then one of the trees with the riser, the little cube riser there behind the deer, and then the two-tier riser went behind that one, and then the fourth tree just to the side of that. And then, oh my goodness, I am loving the way this little cutie came out. An adorable little deer vignette in a faux mercury glass type glass, a perfect retro touch for your home. For the next DIY, I'm going to be using a couple Dollar Tree trees, a Dollar Tree small vase, and these retro colored ornaments from Walmart. Now, when I purchased these trees, I thought they were the regular white ones that they always carry. Turns out they are this fabulous iridescent shade. So they make the perfect tree for this project. And so what I wanted to do was just add the two trees together to create a fuller tree. And so I'm going to just use some zip ties to do that. I'll put one at the top, one in the middle, and one towards the bottom. Next, I wanted to give this globe vase a mercury glass finish as well, but I want to go this time with that pink shade of the Christmas balls. So I went to my craft paint stash and I found this magenta colored paint. Now, it was pretty much at the end of its life cycle there, so I just went ahead and added some water right to the bottle, shook it up, and that's pretty much the consistency that I want the paint to have, so it's nice and runny. And again, I'm just going to twirl it around and then just bang out the excess onto a covered surface. And then for the exterior, I'll use the same process. I'll just spray with the silver paint and then go back and blot with the plastic bag. And then I took some floral foam that I cut down to size and just placed it right in the vase. Then I took some glue and just gave the top of the foam a nice coat of glue and then sprinkled it with some of the faux snow. Next, I took my tree, which I had decorated with the Walmart Christmas balls, and just stuck it right into the foam. And that's it. A cute little iridescent retro Christmas tree in a pink mercury glass vase. For the next DIY, I'm going to be using these retro style window clings, as well as this Dollar Tree ice bucket. You can get that in the party section. And I want to kind of match that background on the window clings. So I just, again, got a couple of different paints that I had already and just tried to create a color that was similar to that background there on the window clings. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to get it somewhat similar. And now what I want to do is, again, take a piece of plastic bag and use that as my applicator. And again, begin now dabbing the color onto the metal. So I'm doing kind of like a reverse mercury glass look a technique. So before it was the color was the base and then I was splattering the silver, and now I'm kind of doing it opposite. Trying to get that same effect, but now using this faux silver ice bucket instead. And then to give it that final retro touch, I'm going to just add one of these window clings here to the front, also some of those little holly leaves as well along the side. And you can Mod Podge those on for a more permanent hold. And there you have it, a cute little retro style ice bucket, or you could use it as a planter or even to fill and give as a gift basket. For the next DIY, I'm going to make one of those retro style little TVs out of this K-Cup coffee box. And so to do that, I'm going to just take that top flap and kind of where those two indents are, I'm going to just draw a straight line there. And then on the other side of the flap, where it attaches to the box, I want to measure about that same amount down. So in this case, it kind of is where that little black box is. So I'm kind of lining up with that black box to draw my line, and then I'm going to just cut the flap in those two spots. Next, I took some white paint and painted all the inside with white paint, and then I painted the outside with black paint. I also painted some beads and some push pins with the black paint as well. I also traced and cut two pieces of heavy cardboard the same size as the bottom of my box, and then I just wanted to glue those two pieces together to create an extra thick piece of cardboard, and then I painted that with some white paint and then sprinkled it with the fake snow. This creates a base for the inside of my box. To paint the exterior wood on the TV box, I wanted to lighten that brown that I had on hand a little bit. So I just added in a little bit of tan paint to get this lighter color. And then I just used a sponge brush to go over the surface that I had already painted black on the outside of the box. And then just using that sponge brush, it just did that kind of streakiness and gave me that kind of wood grain that I was looking for. And I just covered the entirety of the outside of the box with that brown paint. For the interior of the box, I used some sky blue paint to create a blue sky background. And then went back with some white paint to paint on some puffy clouds, and don't forget to get around the sides as well. Next, I put in my snowy bottom, and I kind of had to come in on an angle, but if you kind of twist it around a little bit, it just snaps right down there into place. And then once that was in, I went back and replaced the flap that goes there on the bottom and just covered that piece in nicely and glued it in place. And then, sorry for the blur, but I just used the push pins as legs and pushed those right into place through the cardboard on all four sides. And then it was time to create my TV scene. So I started with this Dollar Tree bottle brush. It was a little bit too tall. This is the smaller one. It comes in that 2-pack set. So I did have to cut it down a little bit. And then I glued it right into place with some hot glue. Next, I took one of those Dollar Tree ornament campers. So these come 2 to a pack. So I just used one of these, again with some hot glue, and glued that right into place. And then I just took this little snowman figurine from the Dollar Tree little village sets, the little figurines that come with those sets, and that completes the scene. To paint the accents, I'm going to use this Butter Crunch colored craft paint. And I'm going to paint along here in the little kind of groove that's left from the K-Cup box itself. So on that flap, when you pull it up, it kind of leaves this little circular or kind of semicircle shaped indent there. You can see it there on this side a little better. And so I'm going to just use the paint to paint in that section and highlight all along that kind of curved space, kind of like the way a TV screen in those days used to be. And then on the top and bottom, I'm going to use some craft sticks or popsicle sticks that I cut down. All I did was cut off the curved edge and had like a straight edge there, and then just painted those to match and glued them in place. To create the rabbit ear antennas, I took one of these little craft sticks, kind of like, you could use a toothpick instead if you didn't have something like this. I think they were some kind of stir sticks or coffee stirrers that I had. But anyway, I just cut that stick in half, and then I'm going to just use my hot glue gun to poke some holes there at the top of a water bottle cap. And then I'm going to just use some hot glue to hot glue the 2 sticks in place in the 2 holes that I made. And of course, I'm going to kind of push them out a little and create that rabbit ear appearance. And then I'm going to paint them with some metallic craft paint. Now I did use bronze here. I showed copper, but I actually used bronze. And now here's where I used the little beads. I did actually paint those in bronze as well. I originally painted those black and then decided that I liked the bronze better. So I went back and painted those before attaching them with some glue as the knobs on the side of the TV. And then here is the finished project, complete with the little rabbit ear antennas. Oh my goodness, I'm telling you, this picture does not do this justice. It is hysterical. It is just the cutest little thing. And it looks all cockeyed here. I don't know why. I couldn't get it straight in the picture, but in real life, it's perfectly fine, and it's just a super cutie. And I don't know about you guys, but I am having a ball with this series. Okay, so for the next DIY, I have another Trash to Treasure, and I'm going to be also using this printout, which I'll link in the description box, and these 5 cans of cat food, and I'm going to be spraying those with this mint-colored spray paint. Next, while the paint was drying on my cans, I went through my cabinet, pretty much trying to find a glass that would be a good match for the bottom of the can, about the same size. And then I'm going to use that to draw the circles around my letters here, my fa la 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 la, and create nice circle cutouts to put on the backs of my cans, or the bottoms of my cans. And then I just arranged the cans in this kind of up and down position, and then used some hot glue and E6000 to attach them all together. And then once the glue that was holding the cans together was set, I went back with some school glue and just placed it there around the front face of the cans, as well as made these kind of little icicle-y type of drips coming down. And I did that all the way around for all 5 of the cans. And then I just took some glitter and sprinkled that all over the glue. And then once the glue and the glitter were dry, I went back with some Mod Podge and just added my fa la 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 la. And there you have it, a fun and festive retro sign that you could either sit on a shelf or tabletop or hang on the wall. And now for something completely different, Style 9 and Natural and Hygge Christmas Decor DIYs. For the first DIY, I'm going to use one of these Dollar Tree candles, but you can use any candle or votive would work just as fine. And I'm going to also be using some bay leaves as well as some of these dried tangerine wedges that I purchased from Walmart. So all I'm going to do is take 1 bay leaf and 1 tangerine wedge and hot glue the 2 together to create a set. And then I'll make about 6 or 7 of those sets. Then using some E6000 as well as some hot glue, I'll attach them to the side of my candle. And I'll just keep going around until I've completed all the way around the candle. Then I'm going to take some raffia ribbon and just tie it around and tie a cute little bow. And then that's it. An easy upgrade to create a beautiful piece of decor, and it also makes a great gift. Now here's another option where I used an Aldi candle and just did 3 of the sets to the front and then wrapped the raffia around and then just kind of glued it there to the back. And again, this could make a beautiful gift, and here we can see it nice and lit up, and it smells as good as it looks. For the next DIY, I'm going to use this little Dollar Tree frame to frame a definition of the word hygge. Now in English, it does not look like the way it's pronounced, but it is a Danish word and a Danish concept, and it means a quality of coziness and comfort, free of any unease, that creates a feeling of contentment and well-being, often achieved and enhanced with loved ones, good food and drink, comfy clothes, nature, candles, and being in the moment. And if you're anything like me, in the middle of all this craziness, that's sounding pretty good right now. So all I did was I cut it down to size, and I took the back piece out of the frame, and then I just used a glue stick to glue it in place, and then I can just easily put it back into the frame. And since I'm striving to add more hygge into my own life, I think I will hang this someplace nice and conspicuous so I can see it all the time. And nothing says hygge and coziness quite like candlelight. So I'm going to just keep it nice and natural and simple and take some juice glasses that I just got from my cabinet, and then also some of these Great Northern beans, and just add them to the juice glasses and then put the candlesticks right in. And you can just make a whole bunch of these, place them all around. You could also add some greens to the front to create a little more of a festive touch. And I just got these greens from shrubs right outside in my yard. And then I just wrapped it with some twine and tied a bow. You could also add some berries or maybe some little pine cones or other decorations. And then another option for your greenery, especially at Christmas time, is always going to be any type of pine cuttings. Now you can get plenty of this for free anywhere where they sell Christmas trees, fresh cut trees, because when they trim the trees, they usually have barrels of these pieces that they're just going to throw away. So you can go there and get those for free, make swags out of them, all types of things. But of course, since they're fresh, they're only going to last a couple of days. So if you are looking for a more long-term but natural option, you could always get something like these. These are preserved. I picked up these at Walmart. For this bunch, it cost $4.97. And then here you can see how beautifully and kind of effortlessly all of this came together. Just adding those beans to the glasses, sticking the candles inside, and then here you can see all the fresh cut greens just arranged around the glasses, making a beautiful centerpiece. I also added a few pine cones, which for some reason I insist on calling acorns, but I got it right this time, pine cones. And they all come together to make a beautiful and natural and calm and simple and easy centerpiece. Another way to create the soft, twinkly light ambiance that is so central to the quality of hygge is to use mini lights. And for this DIY, I'll be using this pack of fairy lights as well as some twigs that I picked up in the park. Now, I looked for the straightest twigs I could find, and sometimes they were just on a longer twig, and then I just kind of cut the piece that was the straightest. So these twigs weren't completely straight. They were kind of crooked, but there was one spot on it that it was straight. And so I cut 2 of them to 14 inches and 1 of them to 9 inches, and then hot glued them all together. Next, I took the top of the battery pack and cut some of more of the twigs down to size to fit the top of the battery pack, and then just hot glued them all along. Next, I took some white yarn that I got from the Dollar Tree. Now you could use twine or some white twine here if you prefer. I just like the look of the white yarn. And so I just started by hot gluing it there to the one corner. And then also little dabs of hot glue all along as I went. If you don't do that, it does kind of move around, and I did try to do it without doing that. Did try to take a shortcut, but yeah, it didn't work. So I highly suggest, as you go, you kind of put little dabs of hot glue and just keep winding it all the way up to the top of the triangle. Then I took the top of the battery pack that I had covered in the sticks, and I just snapped it back, slid it back, and snapped it into place. Now, as you can see, the controls for this particular battery pack are on the bottom, so it's not being affected by those sticks at all. And I can just, leave it down and, turn it on and off and remove the batteries and replace them and all that good stuff. And so what I want to do next is just add my tree there to the base. So I just added some E6000 as well as some hot glue and just glued it into place. Next, once that glue is dry, you want to make sure that glue is dry first before you do this next part, because you don't want it kind of moving around on you. So I just took some packing tape and kind of secured that wire, the excess wire, the black part of the wire there in the back. And then I just took the fairy light part and began wrapping that around the tree all the way up to the top. And then here is the finished project all lit up. Now, that one side is a little bit more crooked, that twig, than I thought it was. So it gives it a whimsical look. Let's go with that. Let's just call it whimsical. Anyway, it's just so pretty still and all lit up. So nice. Those lights just add to give that beautiful, cozy ambiance. For the next DIY, I'm again going to be using some twigs, as well as one of the cylinder vases from the Dollar Tree. Now this is the smaller one, as well as a bag of in-shell mixed nuts. And so I just poured the nuts into the vase, and then I'm going to just place the twigs into the nuts. Next, I wanted to create some ornaments, so I wanted to do some dehydrated tangerine slices. Now, usually you'll see the dehydrated orange slices, but since I want them to be kind of mini ornaments, I'm going to go with tangerines. And then this is what they look like after they were dehydrated. Now I did do these in my dehydrator, but you could also use the oven method to dehydrate them. Then I also kept out some of the almonds from the nuts, and then some pine cones, some cinnamon sticks, and then also some of these star anise. And then I just placed them all together to create little ornaments. So here I have the star anise and the almond and a little pine cone. You could also use the cinnamon sticks and kind of mix and match them and do 3 on one ornament, or any kind of different combination that you would like. And so to assemble the ornaments, I just used some hot glue along the back of the orange, and then I took a piece of looped twine and placed it into the glue, leaving that kind of loop part there up at the top. And then once that glue was dry, I just took the bottom part of the string of the twine, added some hot glue along there, and then took one of my other little items, here is the star anise, and placed that on the bottom and just gave it a little trim there along the bottom. And then here you can see all the different ornaments hanging here on the branches. You can see how pretty they all look together, a beautiful little ornament selection in a natural tone to just bring that wonderful natural ambiance to your home. For the next DIY, I'm again going to be making some ornaments, this time cinnamon and applesauce ornaments. And if you're not familiar with these, you just simply mix 1 single serve of the applesauce along with a 2.5 ounce bottle of the cinnamon, and you just mix it all together and you get a dough with this nice consistency. And then you just roll it out and cut it into shape with cookie cutters. And this is the same dough recipe that I used for the gingerbread episode of this series. And so here I am cutting out some gingerbread, but for this DIY, I'm going to be using the smaller cookie cutters and just cutting out some mini ornaments. And then I used a coffee stirrer instead of a straw to cut out the hole in the top. And then I baked them for 2 hours at 200 degrees. Now for a natural mini tree, I opted for my namesake, rosemary, that's been potted and cut into a Christmas tree shape. I picked this one up at Home Depot, but you can get little natural mini trees and shrubs throughout the season at most supermarkets and home improvement stores. And then once my little cinnamon and applesauce ornaments were baked, I took some of this thin white ribbon and threaded it through the hole and then tied on a little bow. And then they were ready to hang on my rosemary tree. And then to add a little hygge, cozy ambiance, I also added a string of fairy lights. And you can see here how pretty everything came together, plus the wonderful aroma of the fresh rosemary and the spicy cinnamon just add to that cozy comfort. Another natural option for the holidays is always the wonderful amaryllis, and I picked up this one along with some green moss at Walmart. And I'm also going to be using this glass bowl I had on hand to make a beautiful decorative piece. I just took some of the green moss and added it there along the bottom and sides of the glass bowl. And then I just took the bulb from the amaryllis potted plant and placed it right there in the middle, added some of the dirt from the amaryllis as well, making sure to not get it there along the sides because I want to have that green moss all along the sides of the bowl. And then I just took some more of the green moss and added that all around the top. And now the only thing left is to add some water and watch it sprout up over the Advent season until you have some beautiful, vibrant blooms by Christmas. And then in addition to making a beautiful decorative piece, it also makes a great gift for anyone who loves flowers or gardening or has a green thumb on your list. Up next is style 10, Boho Christmas. For my first DIY, I'm going to use a glass vase that I picked up from Goodwill. These are pretty common and they only cost about $1 or $2, and you may even have some at home. Now, what I want to point out about these is that they have a raised surface design. So this one here has leaves and the other one has some wheat with a crisscross design. Now, I'm only going to be using the one of these, but I wanted to show you that you can use anything with a raised design and it'll work for this project. I'm also going to need a candle plate from the Dollar Tree. And after washing both with soap and water, I'm also going to wipe them down with some white vinegar to prepare the surface. Next, I'm going to be using my favorite spackle paint mixture to paint the surface of the vases and give them a nice texture. So to do that, I'm going to use 1/3 part of spackle to 2/3 part of the paint, and I'm going to be using a nice ivory color of paint to do that. And this is just regular craft paint. And then I'm just going to paint the vase with my spackle paint. And I will end up doing about 3 coats of this paint. Now I will do the vase as well as the candle plate with the paint mixture, and again about 3 coats. Once my ivory colored paint is dry, I'm going to go back with some of this country tan colored craft paint. I did dilute this with a little bit of water. I didn't want it to be regular thick consistency, but I don't want it to be a stain consistency either. Just kind of a few drops in there just to thin out the paint a little bit. Then I'm just going to take my brush, a little sponge brush, and I just want to put little streaks of this kind of diluted country tan color all along the edges and around the surface on the inside. And here I'm just trying to create a look to make it kind of look like, worn through paint. So just again using the sponge brush to just kind of lightly coat, and then even using dry parts of the sponge that don't have any paint on it at all to further blend. To paint the design, I'm going to use the very tip of the foam brush. I'm going to just dab it into that country tan paint and just very lightly and very gently just go along the top of the raised surfaces. So just kind of dabbing along as I go. Just go nice and slow. You just want to make sure you're getting the very top there of the design. And then once all the design is done all the way around, I'll just go ahead with my foam brush again, this time doing that little streaky motion again along that bottom edge of the vase. And then the final step will just be to use some E6000 glue and attach the 2 pieces together. And then here is the finished project. Just add a candle and some fresh cut greens and you have a beautiful festive boho decor piece. For the next DIY, I'm going to use this beaded plaque and this star ornament, both from the Dollar Tree. Now, I just want the metal piece of the star, so I'm going to just pop off that greenery at the top and then also just pop the star right off the backing. And then I'll just set that aside for a second. And for the plaque, I want to paint that back panel with some of this ivory colored paint, and that panel does is removable. It does pop out. Now for the star, I want to get rid of that glitter. So what I want to do is take some of my Goo Gone and just spray it down really well with the Goo Gone and let it sit. Now, I did have to do this a couple of times and I had to scrub it with a scrub brush under a faucet, but the glitter did eventually come off. There are some little, really stubborn pieces, but I let it go, add it to the festive touch. Now, what I want to do on those little raised surfaces, again, I'm going back with my white paint marker and I'm just going to dab the white paint marker on top of, there's like little kind of raised dots that come up. And this way it just gives it a little bit of an extra outline, a little more definition with that white paint. And then I just wanted to show you that they do have a Christmas tree ornament in the same style if you want to use that one instead or do them both. But all that's left for this one is to just attach it with some E6000 glue. I also wanted to add some greenery, but since the greenery that came with the ornament has these red berries that really kind of don't go, I just went back with some white paint and painted over the berries with the white paint and then glued them to my frame. And then here's the finished project, a quick and easy way to add a little boho vibe to your Christmas decor. And now it's time to announce the winner of the plaid tree giveaway from last week's video. And the winner is Laura Pepperone. Congratulations, Laura, and thank you to everyone who entered. And we have another giveaway with details coming up in a little bit. For the next DIY, I'm going to use these little dessert glasses that I got from the Dollar Tree. They come 3 to a pack and you can get those in the kitchen section. And then also these little nuts that I got from Lowe's. They come 4 to a pack and I believe they're less than $1. Then I'm going to take some E6000 glue and I'm going to just glue those nuts to the bottoms of the glasses. Then I'm going to spray paint everything with this metallic spray paint in gilded brass. And then once the paint is dry, I'm going to just take a white paint marker and make some little boho style designs on the sides of the glasses. So you can make just kind of little circles and X's, and then maybe like I'm doing here, like a long straight line, and then you kind of add little berries to the side of that in alternating, one left, one right, all the way down. And then you can do the same thing with little kind of arrows going down, whichever type of little boho type design that you would like to do. I did actually change them up on all 3 of these. I kind of did X's at the top on one and little circles at the bottom, and you can just do them any way you like. And then I'm going to just take a piece of twine and thread it there through the hole in the nut, and then I want to take the tops around and just create a knot there at the top. And then since these are glass and I don't want them falling off the tree, I'm going to go ahead and pull through a second knot, double knot it there, just trim off the top, and there you have a cute little boho ornament. And then here's the finished project, some gilded brass bell ornaments to bring some boho chic to your Christmas tree. And speaking of trees, let's see if we can take this little glitzy number and turn it into a boho style tree. The first thing we're going to need to do is remove all of this tinsel garland. It's just held on by these little nubs that are on the outside of the frame, and you just need to unwind around those. And then once all the tinsel is removed, I'm going to take some wire cutters and remove said nubs from around the outside of the frame. And I'm going to do that all the way around. And then I'm going to give my frame a quick coat of white spray paint. And now I'm going to amaze you with my fabulous macrame skills. So if you've watched my channel before, you know that I have 0 macrame skills. And so, you have to improvise. And so what I've done in the past is take frames like this one or wire baskets and other items from the Dollar Tree like this that I can just use the mop head, the Dollar Tree mop head strands, just pull them out and just basically start wrapping them around the frame. So I just take some hot glue and I get a starting point and attach the strand there with the hot glue, and then I continue to wrap it until I get to the end of that strand. Then once I get there, I hot glue it again, and then I also take a second strand and place that into the glue, and then that will start the second strand. Then I'll just continue to wrap the frame. Now I will have little ends there and other little fuzzies and things that'll pop up, but I'll just go back with some scissors afterwards and cut all that off. Now here you can see I've wrapped that first level, that first triangle on the top level, and now I'm going to just do the same for the next 3 levels. Then I will start wrapping the vertical bars that go down as well. Now for that first section, you can see where I did the vertical bars down. Now for that top little triangle, I did decide to do that as one piece. And so I just wrapped around both bars there, but then did separate ones for the ones underneath. And now for my second section of the tree, I'm going to do that same thing where I take those two middle sections and I'm going to wrap both of those at the same time. So I started there on the back. I just added a little hot glue and then just attached my strand there to the back. And then I'm just going to begin wrapping there around those two mid sections of this level. And then once I get to the end of the strand, I will again just hot glue it in place and then add a little bit more hot glue, and that'll start the second strand. Now here's what it looks like with that midsection all wrapped. Now for the next section of the tree, I was going to do another middle wrap, and then I decided that I would like it better if this section didn't have the middle wrap but did the single lines again. So I'm going to just go ahead and wrap those bars straight down, and here you can see how I'm doing that there. But then for the last level of the tree, I did go back to the pattern where I was wrapping those two center sections all together. For the stand, I took a Dollar Tree wood dowel and just added some hot glue there to the top of that bottom level of the tree. Then I took some of these little tiny zip ties, also from the Dollar Tree, and just attached them there to the base of the tree frame. There, one at the bottom and one at the top. Next, I just took my wire cutters and clipped off those ends of the frame. And then I just wrapped the wood dowel and the remaining piece of the frame there at the bottom with the strand from the mop. To create the fringe at the bottom, I'm going to take another mop strand and separate it in two. Then I'm going to fold it in two and cut it there. And then with those half strands, I'm going to just wrap the bottom rung and tie a double knot. And then continue this all the way along the bottom. And then here's what it looks like with all the little fringes attached. I will go back and trim those up a bit. But first I want to take a little wood box that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm again going to use that country tan colored paint. And this time I am going to dilute it quite a bit to like a stain consistency. And then again, using a foam brush, I'm going to just kind of streak it across the surface, creating a nice weathered wood look. Now somehow I lost the footage, but the next thing I did was I did add some floral foam to the little drawer there with the heart-shaped cutout, and then I put the drawer back into the box, and then I put the dowel into the foam through the heart shape. And then I finished off the bottom of the dowel with some more of the mop strand and then just wrapped it around the heart shape so that it covered that hole. And then here you can see the finished project, a beautiful boho fringe tree. And here you can see as well a little better how I finished off the bottom by continuing that wrap all the way around to cover up that heart-shaped hole in the box. And now style number 11, White Christmas Winter Wonderland. For the first DIY, I'm going to take two of these Dollar Tree crates and I'm going to glue them both together and then also paint them with some white chalk paint. Next, I'm going to take some of these Dollar Tree snowflake ornaments and I'm going to just glue 3 to the front, 3 to the back, and 1 to each side. Then I'll take some of these Dollar Tree tree ornaments and Dollar Tree deer ornaments, and I'm going to be using those to create a little vignette. So what I did was I put some foam into the little boxes, and then I'm going to take some white paint and just paint right over the tops of the foam. And then while the paint is still wet, I'll take some of the Dollar Tree faux snow and just sprinkle it right on top. Then I took 3 of the tree ornaments and I wanted to glue the 3 together. Now I am using hot glue there, but I think both a combination of hot glue and E6000 is probably best to attach these 3 trees together. And then once I did get all 3 together, I did make 4 sets of those. And I'm going to use those to line the back of my vignette. So I just stuck them right there into the foam, 2 to each box, and just created a little back screen there in the back. And then the 2 deer went in opposite directions to the front, and I did use a little hot glue to just secure them in place. And then I'm going to take another 3 trees, and this time I'm going to glue 2 together side by side, and then a third there in the middle and a little raised up. And then I just placed that set right towards the front. And then I wanted to add a little greenery to the piece, so I took a couple of sprigs of evergreen there from a wreath and just cut it down a little bit, give it a nice trim. I just bent it into a round shape and added a little collar for the deer. And here you can see how pretty everything comes together and how nice it looks with some greens and twinkling lights, and what a great addition it would make to a mantle or an entertainment center or a buffet table or anywhere you would like to add a little winter wonderland magic. For the next DIY, I'm going to use one of the small Dollar Tree cylinder vases, a couple of these Dollar Tree ornaments, as well as this Dollar Tree box, which I lost the top. I don't know what I did with the top, but this is just one of the Dollar Tree boxes they sell. And then I'm going to use some of this caramel color paint to just create a stain, and I just watered it down. So I don't want to cover it in the paint, just kind of create a nice stain for the wood. And then I'm going to paint all of the wood with that caramel colored stain. And then I did also cut out a piece of cardboard. I traced the bottom of the vase and then just cut that out into a circle. And I'm going to paint that with some of the white paint. And then again, take some of that Dollar Tree faux snow and sprinkle that on top of the wet paint. Next, I'm going to just take some wire cutters and just snip the top there off of the church. And then once the stain is dry on my little box, I am going to go back with some white paint and just do a little dry brushing over the top. I also grabbed a large wood bead from my stash and just also gave it a little dry brush treatment with the white paint. Next, I took the cardboard disc and added some glue there to the middle and then attached the church ornament. Next, I took some more glue and added that to the top of the box and then attached the ornament on top of that. And now I'm just placing the vase over top. Now for the topper, I'm going to be using the star ornament and the large wood bead. I'm going to just add some E6000 glue there to the center of the bead and then place one of the points of the stars right inside. And then I can just attach that directly. But what I want to do here is I do have this little wood piece that was from a candle topper that I had from a jar candle. So I'm going to just go ahead and give that some dry brush treatment on top of that as well. Glue that to the top of the vase and then add the star ornament topper on top of that. And then here is the finished project. I just love these little scenes under glass. I just think they're so cute. And this one comes together so quickly, easily, and inexpensively with just a few Dollar Tree items and some tidbits from around the house. And now here is another quick and easy scene under glass using this Dollar Tree jar. And then there to the left is a recycled fruit cup container. And then I'll also be using these Dollar Tree bottle brush trees in white. And I'm going to just glue those to the inside of the jar lid. And then I'm going to make a big hot mess using the little foam bead snow from the Dollar Tree. And I just wanted to put that there in the bottom. And you can see I had to actually use my vacuum cleaner to clean that up because they were going everywhere. Anyway, I then went and painted the fruit cup container with some brown paint and then also gave it a little dry brush of the white paint on top of that. I also did a dry brush to the jar lid as well. And then I just glued the recycled container to the jar and then added a little snow-covered pine cone to the top of that. And then here is the finished project, a cute little snowy scene captured under glass using some Dollar Tree products, a little paint, and a recycled fruit cup container. For the next DIY, I'm going to take this Dollar Tree sign as well as these 15-inch shims, and I'm going to alternate the thin and thick sides of the shims and then glue them down in place on the sign using some wood or multi-purpose glue. Next, I'm going to take this Peace on Earth sign from the Dollar Tree and paint it with some dark green paint. Next, I'm going to go back to my sign, and I'm again going to use that caramel color stain that I used for the little box earlier that I made using some caramel color paint mixed in with a little water, and I'm going to just go ahead and paint that over all of my little wood shims. Then once the paint was dry on my Peace on Earth sign, I went back again with some more of that stain, and I just wanted to do a little distressing around the edges of that sign. Since this is going to be sitting on top of the wood sign, since it will have kind of a 3D effect, the print as well on this in a natural situation would have also gotten weathered and worn. So I'm going to just go all around the edges of the lettering, and then I'll also brush some over the top as well, trying to recreate what would happen if it was actually weathered in nature. And then to give the sign a weathered effect, I'm going to go back with some white paint, and I'll be doing some dry brushing with the white paint onto the sign. And then in any areas, if I go a little bit too crazy, like I do right there with the white paint, I did just go back with some of the other paint, just kind of toning that down a little bit. And then once everything was finished on that, I went back and just attached the Peace on Earth sign to the wood sign with some of the wood glue again, or all-purpose glue. And then I'm going to just kind of off-center that because I do want to wrap the edges there with some of the twine and add a little floral as well. So I just took some twine and wound it around the bottom there. And then also I wanted to add a little bit of snow effect to the pine that I cut off of a wreath. And so I just took some of white craft paint and just proceeded to paint that on top to create that snow effect, and then hot glued it into place, and then added a couple of snow-covered pine cones as well. And then here is the finished project, a weathered woodland winter wonderland, say that 5 times, sign with a beautiful Christmas sentiment. For the next DIY, I'm going to take 3 popsicle sticks and cut them down into 3.5 inches. Then I'm also going to be using these giant craft sticks that I got from Walmart, and I'm going to cut the first one down to 8 inches. Then I'm going to cut a second down to 8 inches, but then cut that second one in half. Next, I'm going to take a full-size craft stick and cut that one in half as well. I'll also be using some of these wood craft cubes from the Dollar Tree. Next, I'm going to take the 3 popsicle sticks as well as the full-size jumbo craft stick that I cut in half and paint those all with some green craft paint. Then I'm going to use some of the caramel paint stain to stain the other pieces of the wood. Next, I'm going to attach the little wood cubes to the long green pieces of wood. And so what I did was I just added a little glue there to the side of the cube, and then I'm going to line the green pieces of wood up with a ruler and add the cubes there at both the 3 and 8-inch marks. And then I just placed some glue there on top of the cubes. And then I had to actually cut down my cross pieces. I had them at 3.5 inches. They needed to be 3 inches. So I cut those down a little bit and then just placed them on top there, on top of the cubes. Next, I took my stained pieces and placed the large one there in the center and then the 2 smaller ones to each side, right on top of the cubes. And then I did have to shift them down a little bit because I did need to make enough room for that crossbar up at the top, which is still 3.5 inches, by the way. And then I wanted to also add a little decoration. So I took a couple of these green sprigs, as well as this little pine cone, wrapped them with some twine, and then tied a little bow. And then I just hot glued that in place at the top of my sled. And then here's the finished project, a cute little sled in warm woodland colors. It makes a great decor piece as well as a great little project for the family. For the next DIY, I'm going to be using this Dollar Tree frame, which I've already taken apart. Don't need the glass, I'm going to just set that aside. And then also one of these party bead necklaces, and I'm going to paint both of them with some white spray paint. And then once they were painted, I just took the necklace and cut it down into strips and then glued those strips to the inside of the frame. And then I just took some more of that watered down caramel colored paint and just did a little dry brush streaks across the frame and the beads. And don't do like me, wait for these to dry before you attempt this step. I had to go back and fix where I had just pulled the beads out because I did not let those dry the way they should have. And now at this stage, you could just use this as a frame, but I wanted to create a decor piece, and I was going to use that little Christmas card there with the snowman, but I wasn't loving the colors too much. They were a little bright for what I was going for. So I decided to just go ahead and create my own little woodland snowy tree scene. And so I just took a sage colored or moss colored paint there to the back, and then a darker green in the front for the tree to the front, and then I just went in with some white paint on the bottom of a paintbrush and created some snow on top. And then here is the finished project, a charming snowy woodland scene in a beaded rustic wood frame, so pretty as a decor piece or with photos. For the next DIY, I'm going to use this globe vase as well as these snowflake stickers, both which I got from the Dollar Tree. Then I'm going to take some Dollar Tree spackle and mix it with some craft paint to create my favorite spackle paint. But before I paint the vase, I'm going to just apply these snowflake stickers all around. I'm going to do large ones, then small ones, and kind of just mix up all the prints and just take those all the way around the exterior of the little vase. Once all the stickers are on, I'm going to take my paint that I've now mixed. And so I mixed it at half and half spackle to half paint. I think it was a little thick because I actually did use chalk paint here. So it would probably be better if it's half and half for regular craft paint. If you are going to use a chalk paint, I'd go a little less than half and half. This ended up being a little bit too thick. But I just went around all of the surface of the vase. Then I did give it a little sprinkle with some of this fine glitter, just to give it a little extra sparkle. Then I set it aside to allow the paint to completely dry. Then once the paint was dry, I was able to go back and remove the stickers, which of course left a little snowflake imprint in the paint. And then between the shape of the vase and the texture of the paint, it makes it look like a little snowball. And then when you pull away the little stickers, you have these little snowflake shaped windows, which is great because I'm going to be using this as a candle votive. So the light from the candle will shine through the little windows. And then to clean up any of the residue left by either the sticker or the paint, I went back with a Q-tip that I had dipped in some white vinegar and just cleaned up all the way around the snowflake and all around the glass. And then here is the finished project, a little snowball snowflake globe votive. You can make several of these and put them all around the house. They would look so cute in a winter wonderland theme. For the last DIY, I'm going to use some of this chunky yarn that I bought from Walmart, as well as one of these garland glitter trees that I got from Dollar Tree. Now I just removed the glitter garland, and that leaves me with this skeleton underneath. I painted that with some white spray paint, and then I'm going to just take the yarn and begin attaching that first there at the bottom, just using some hot glue. So I'm just going to hot glue down there around the frame at the bottom, and then just stick the yarn right into the hot glue, and then just proceed to do that all the way around the bottom, and then work my way up the frame, adding some hot glue sporadically here and there as I go. And here is the finished project, a cute little fuzzy wuzzy tree in a beautiful winter white. Now, you could also make this project using the poster board cone shapes like I did in the previous DIYs in this series. And then you can make them all different sizes, if you like, up to 20 inches tall. And I'll leave a link to one of those videos here and in the description box. And now it's time for the reason for the season. This was actually the first video in this series, but now that the season is upon us, I've saved the best for last. For my first DIY, I'm going to use this Dollar Tree sign. I'm going to be using the back of that. And also this printout from my computer. I will supply a link to this in the description box below, as well as some of these square beads from the Dollar Tree that I've put on skewers. I would suggest clipping the tops of those because they are pointy, and just added some beads to those. And then I'm going to paint the beads as well as the back of the sign with this nutmeg colored craft paint. And then once the beads are painted and dry, I am going to go back with some white chalk paint on a dry brush and just give the beads a little distressing with the white chalk paint. While those are drying, I'm going to go ahead and transfer my image. Now, I did cut the little pieces out separately so it's easier to arrange on the back of the sign. And then I did scribble on the back of the piece of paper with a pencil. And this is what I'm going to use to transfer the image. But before I do set that where I want it to be, I wanted to just put some of the beads around to make sure that I wasn't transferring the image in the spot where the beads needed to go. So once I had that, I went ahead and just transferred the image by writing on the front piece of the paper, just tracing the front piece of the paper, and you'll see where it does leave an image. It is faint, but you can see it well enough to go back with a white paint marker. And then I'm going to go ahead and trace the image of the baby Jesus in the manger there at the bottom, again making sure that I am leaving space for the beads to go in. And then once the image is transferred, you get to pretend that you are an uber good sketch artist who can just amazingly and quickly put together a baby in a manger. Of course, there's a little image there faintly in the background that I'm following, but nonetheless, we can pretend. And then I will just finish up with the star image. Once all the image transfer is complete, I'm going to go ahead and attach my beads, and I'll just leave them right on the skewers. Just trim the skewers down a little bit to fit the space. I will do the top and the bottom first, and then fill in the sides. And then as a final touch, I just wanted to add a little burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree, just tied on a little bow there on the hanger. And then I took one of these stems that I got from Walmart for 98 cents and just kind of bent it around and added it there to the corner. And then I just added some white berries as well as a little bit more of the blueberries. It just felt like it needed to be filled in a little bit more. And then here's the finished project. I just love how this came out. I love the beadwork as well as the pretty little floral accent. And then of course, the sentiment of the reason for the season. Okay, on to DIY number 2, and for this one I'm going to again use that nutmeg colored paint and one of these Dollar Tree boxes and then 2 packs of the large paint sticks. And I want to take the nutmeg paint and I'm just diluting it with some water because I just want to create a little stain for both the wood box and the paint sticks. And then once the stain is dry, I'm going to go back with a dry brush of some white chalk paint. And I'm going to do both the paint sticks and the little wood box. Next, I'm going to pull out my miter box and saw and cut down my paint sticks. Now, I want to keep one of the paint sticks whole, and then the others I'm going to cut into a 12-inch piece, a 10-inch piece, an 8-inch piece, a 6-inch piece, a 4-inch piece, and a 2-inch piece on top. On the cut sticks, I'm going to be writing "Joy to the world, the Lord has come." Now, in order to do that, I'm going to just do it freehand, but I do want to create a little 1-inch sections that I'm measuring out with my ruler so that this way I can keep my letters contained within that 1-inch spot, and it just makes it easier to do this by hand. And then once all my letters are complete, I'm going to go back with that top piece and just draw a little star on the top and then fill that in with some gold paint. Then I'm going to use some wood glue to attach my cut sticks to the center pole. To dress things up a little, I'm going to add some greenery to each end of the cut pieces. Next, I'm going to take the drawer from my box and then just take a piece of foam that I cut down to size and just place it right there into the drawer. Then I placed the drawer back into the box and took the bottom end of my center stick and inserted it into the foam through the hole in the top of the box. And then just added some more greens there along the bottom to cover the hole. And then here is the finished project. It stands nice and tall at about 2 feet high, and it proclaims the good news and promise of Christmas. My next DIY was inspired from this beautiful Holy Family nativity that I saw from Redwood Crafts in New Zealand. I just thought it was so beautiful, and I wanted to see if I could recreate it using Dollar Tree and household items. To start, I took 2 of the small Dollar Tree gold Christmas balls. These are the ones that come in that long tube, and then I just removed the ornament hanger from the top. Then I took a pipe cleaner, folded it in half, and then cut it in half. Then I'm going to take one piece and fold that in half again, give it a little twist, and insert it into the bottom of my Christmas ball. And I'm going to do that for both of the pieces. Next, I wanted to make my Christmas balls look like large wood beads. So I took my go-to paint, color, and paint, which is the Waverly in the color Cashew, and painted the balls and then set them aside to dry. Next, I took 2 paper towel rolls and I measured 1 to 6 inches and 1 to 7 inches and then just cut them there. For Joseph's robe, I'm going to use this Dollar Tree placemat, and I just cut off all the edges all the way around because I actually just want the top piece of that placemat. But I am going to hold on to those clippings because I am going to use a little piece a little later on. Now, in addition to the top piece of that placemat, I went ahead and cut a 6 by 7 inch and a 6 by 12 inch piece of an old sheet that I had. Next, I took some Mod Podge and just dabbed it around the edges of the cut sheet to stop any fraying that might occur. While the Mod Podge was drying, I took some floral foam and just made a little indent there at the top to give me a guide as to what I had to cut out for the paper towel roll. Then I took the foam and carefully inserted it into the paper towel holder. Now you want to kind of do this slowly and just kind of break off pieces as you go that might, kind of still be in the way as the cardboard kind of cuts through the foam. And you also want to make certain that the cardboard isn't folding in on itself, so kind of make sure that stays straight as well. And then once my foam is inside the paper towel roll, I'm going to take my 6 by 7 inch piece of sheet and just wrap the paper towel roll with the sheet and hot glue it in place. Next, I'm going to take one of these coasters that I happen to have on hand, but you can just use a cardboard round. That would work just as fine. And then I'm going to just hot glue the bottom of my paper towel roll and attach it to the coaster. Then I'm going to take 2 popsicle sticks and cut off about 3/4 of an inch on each end of the popsicle stick. And I do want to hold on to those cut pieces because I will be using those a little bit later. And then I'm going to take the cut sticks and hot glue one towards the back and one towards the front of my paper towel roll. Next, I'm going to take another pipe cleaner and I'm going to hot glue to the ends of each side one of those cut pieces from the popsicle sticks. Then I'll just take the pipe cleaner and wrap it around the paper towel holder, hot gluing it in place, making sure that I also attach it to the popsicle sticks. And then once the arms are attached, I'm going to insert the head there right between the two popsicle sticks. And now I'm going to make the robe, and I'm going to use again that placemat that I had cut the bottom piece off of, and that does measure 11 by 18 inches. And I'm going to fold it once in half and then in half again. And then I want to take my folded piece of material and just measure in 3 inches from the right hand side. I'll do that both at the top and at the bottom. And then I'm going to measure 6 inches from the bottom. And so I'm going to draw a line there, 3 inches in at 6 inches high, and then again another line down there that is 3 inches in from the side. And then I'm going to cut that piece out. And then there in the top middle, I'm going to just cut out a little U shape for the head. And since this is going to be more of a robe than a tunic, I am going to cut up the middle of the front piece. And then I want to create some hems, so I'm going to just flip it over to the back side and just using some hot glue go along the edges of the cross shape pattern here. So just on the 4 edges there, I'm going to go across with some hot glue and fold the hem in. And then once the 4 edges are glued, I just went back to the front center and folded that in on a little bit of an angle and then hot glued that in place. And then once all of my hems were complete, I just took my robe and folded it in half again, just lining up all the seams and then just attached them with some hot glue. And then once all of my seams were attached, I just took the robe and turned it back right side out. And then I just took my robe and dressed my little paper towel figure, and it reminded me of making Barbie clothes. I used to make Barbie clothes and furniture all the time because it was so ridiculously expensive. You can get a whole new doll for the price of like one outfit. So I would always make them out of tissue paper and all kinds of things. But let me know in the comments below if you used to also make Barbie doll furniture and clothes and just have a lot of fun with that when you were a kid. To hold the robe in place, I'm going to be adding little dabs of hot glue in various different spots. So for example, right there up at the top, I do want the robe to close a little bit there. So I just put a little dab of hot glue on the paper towel roll, and then I'm going to add the top flap, add a little bit of hot glue there to hold the 2 pieces together at the top. Now for the headpiece, I do want the top of the head to have a little bit of a lift where I'm going to add the wrap on the top. So I'm going to just take a cotton ball and I cut it in half, and then I just hot glue that to the top. Now I'm going to take that 6 by 12 inch piece of sheet. Now you can see where it was frayed, so I did do that Mod Podge there on the ends, and now I'm going to just cut those frayed pieces off, and because the Mod Podge is there, it'll keep those other pieces from fraying. Then I'm just going to take my piece of material and I'm going to lay it over the top of Joseph's head, and I'm going to do it a little bit off center so it is a little bit longer on the left hand side. Then I'm going to take some hot glue and I'm going to put it just below the hairline there and then along the sides of the face. And then I'll take the material and I'll just press it down into the hot glue on the top and then kind of fold it over on each side and then attach it there to the side of the face. Then I'm going to attach the bottom right side of the head wrap with some hot glue there to the robe, and then I'll take the other piece on the left hand side and just wrap that around Joseph's head and drape it over nicely and then just secure it in place with some hot glue. Then I'll take one of those strips that I saved from the placemat when I cut it down, and I'm going to just take that and wrap that around the top of the headpiece and glue it in place. And now, of course, we must give Joseph a staff, so I'm going to take one of these Dollar Tree dowels and just cut about an inch or two off the top, and then just hot glue it there to Joseph's hand. For Mary, I repeated the same process, just using a 6-inch long paper towel roll, but pretty much everything else is the same. For the head wrap, I'll again be using a 6-inch by 12-inch piece of the sheet. And then for the robe, I'm going to use this material flat from Walmart that I got for $1.47, and I'll cut that into a 10-inch by 18-inch rectangle, and then fold it the same way I did the robe previously. And then I'll make the same cut, this time only going up 5 inches instead of the 6, but still going in 3 inches off the side. And then I will cut out the little head area, and then do all of the hems as I did before, including that angular hem there at the front of the robe. And then once all that is complete, I will go back and add some hot glue to the seams, again just folding it over and gluing those seams into place. I'll again just turn the robe back to the right side out, and then just proceed to dress Mary in the robe. And then again, to add a little lift, I'm going to take that other piece of the cotton ball, kind of spread it out a little bit more. I don't want it to have as much of a puff on the top. And then I'm again going to add some hot glue right below the cotton ball, as well as along the sides of the face, and then just attach the head wrap by pressing it into the glue. And then I'll take the right side and pull it down towards the robe and just add a little hot glue to attach it there, and then drape and wrap around to the back, where I will also add some more hot glue. And then here are the completed Mary and Joseph, but now it's time to make the baby Jesus. To make the baby, I'm going to use a wood skewer and a cotton ball that I've pulled out a little lengthwise, and I'm going to just put the skewer into the cotton ball, kind of wrapping it around. Then I'll go ahead and cut off the excess, and then add a little hot glue to the top there, and then add a wood bead to the skewer. And then once that glue has set, I'll cut off the excess skewer at the top. For the blanket, I'll be using a 4-inch by 4-inch piece of the sheet. And all I'm going to do is kind of put it in a diamond shape and fold down that top corner. Then I'll take some hot glue, add that to the top of the head, and then do some more hot glue along the sides of the face, and just bring that blanket to wrap around the top of the head. Next, I'm going to take that bottom corner of the blanket and fold it up into the body, adding a little hot glue there on top. And then I will take the right hand side, wrap it around the body of the baby and kind of tuck it under, and then wrap the left hand corner again all the way around, securing it with some hot glue to the back. And then the baby is ready to be attached to Mary's hands and arms. And then here is the finished project. I'm just loving how this Holy Family came out. It's not exactly like the original, but I think it's still pretty cute. And here you can see the comparison between the two. Let me know in the comments what you think. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this compilation video as well as the 12 Styles series. If you enjoyed the series, please let me know in the comments and let me know which one of the different styles was your favorite. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give a big thumbs up, and thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on FABEDhacks, where we're putting the extraordinary one DIY at a time.